Kagaya's dilemma. Perched atop a tall tree, Kagaya had been motionless for an entire week. Her sharp eyes gazed at the Colosseum in the distance, her expression a mixture of uncertainty and contemplation. Sigh. She sighed deeply, frustration evident in the sound. Kagaya was in trouble, big trouble. She had been fired, and immediately after being dismissed, she found herself hired again, but this time as Victor's personal maid. This abrupt transition wasn't the source of her turmoil, though. What about my salary? My retirement plan? My extra benefits? And most importantly, my vacation? Kagaya tugged at her hair in exasperation, her usual calm demeanor completely shattered. Gosh! She groaned loudly, slumping against the tree trunk. After a moment, she glanced back at the Colosseum, her expression still conflicted. I'm glad to be free from Clan Snow, but Lord Victor can't possibly afford me. I'm an expensive maid. The perfect maid. Despite her frustration, Kagaya acknowledged a sliver of relief. Although she wasn't entirely free from the chains of Clan Snow, being under Victor's employ gave her more freedom, especially since she trusted him to make a reasonable contract without the suffocating restrictions her previous employers had imposed. Sigh. She sighed again, losing count of how many times she'd done so over the past week. The problem of money, however, remained. While she had substantial savings accumulated over centuries, she knew they wouldn't last forever. Work is work, and everyone needs money. Even vampires, she muttered to herself. Placing a hand on her chin, she feigned deep thought. But being Lord Victor's personal maid? Huh? A small smile tugged at her lips. Huh? That doesn't sound bad at all. Ruby and Sasha's training. Having parted ways with Violet, Ruby and Sasha returned to Skathaka's mansion and immediately resumed their training. Ruby, being the more experienced of the two, took it upon herself to teach Sasha the basics. However, she quickly noticed something troubling. Your basics are a mess, Ruby commented, looking down at Sasha, who lay sprawled on the ground after another failed attempt. What were you even doing before this? She had noticed this flaw a week ago, but had hoped Sasha would improve with practice. Unfortunately, Sasha's progress remained stagnant, and teaching her was proving to be a monumental task. A vein throbbed on Sasha's forehead as she pushed herself up. Maybe the problem is you, who explains things with Bo. Bah! Pew pew. Ruby's face flushed red. I didn't explain it like that. Oh, so I'm deaf now? Maybe you are. Ruby shot back, unwilling to back down. Bitch! What did you just call me? Ruby's irritation boiled over, and the two lunged at each other, ready for another fight. Enough! Lakis suddenly appeared between them, holding out her hands to separate the two. Lakis! Sasha and Ruby exclaimed in unison. Big sister, Lakis sighed heavily. Can't you two go 10 minutes without arguing? It's her fault. She can't explain anything properly. Sasha pointed accusingly. No, it's her fault. She can't understand anything. Ruby countered. The two glared at each other for a moment before huffing and looking away. Humph! Humph! Lakis pinched the bridge of her nose. Having observed their training for a week, she had come to a conclusion. The two women were polar opposites. Ruby was a quick learner who excelled at mastering techniques, but struggled to articulate what she knew. Sasha, on the other hand, relied on instinct and could explain concepts well, but struggled to learn from others. You two need an intermediary, Lakis muttered to herself. Pepper's interruption. Chomp! Chomp! The sound of crunching broke the tension. The three women turned to see Pepper munching on blood-red popcorn, a matching drink in her other hand. She wore oversized black glasses with a bold 3D symbol on the frame, looking like someone ready to watch a movie. The three stared at her in disbelief. Phewie? Why are you all looking at me? Pepper blinked innocently, resembling a guilty cat caught red-handed. The trio collectively sighed. Let's take a break, Sasha suggested, rubbing her temples. Agreed, Ruby said. Later, a few hours passed before they resumed. Okay, this time, don't explain anything. Just fight using the basics, Sasha instructed Ruby. Ruby raised an eyebrow. And what about the count transformation? When will you teach me that? Sasha smirked. When you teach me something useful? Ruby frowned, but relented. Fine. Sasha turned to Lakis. You'll step in if we mess up? I don't want to do anything. Lakis whined, lying on the ground like a lazy caterpillar. Ruby's eyes softened into a pleading gaze. Please, big sister. Lakis groaned. Fine. I'll do it. She got up, grumbling under her breath. Yay. Ruby cheered with a rare laugh. Sasha's sharp gaze narrowed. You should smile more often. Darling would like it. Ruby's cheeks flushed. Shut up, says the woman who can't be honest with her feelings. Pepper chimed in, grinning slyly. Sasha's face turned crimson. Shut up, and stop making so much noise with that food. You'll get fat. Pepper laughed. Vampires can't get fat. This is crystallized blood anyway. She smirked mischievously. Lakis, however, snapped. You don't get fat because everything goes to your breasts. Pepper tilted her head. Sister, are you stupid? Vampires don't get fat. Pepper's innocent expression only fueled Lakis' irritation. I pity you, big sister. You're stuck in that lowly body forever. Lakis' hair shadowed her face as she disappeared in a blur. Moments later, she reappeared with a rope in hand. Apologize? Ow, I'm sorry, big sister. Pepper panicked and tried to flee, but Lakis was faster. Excuses won't save you. Pepper's screams echoed through the forest. No, I don't have a BDSM fetish. Violet's training. Meanwhile, Violet returned to her family estate after parting ways with Ruby and Sasha. She spent the week focusing on regaining control of her powers under Agnes' watchful eye. I'm impressed, my daughter. Such raw power at just 21 years old. It's remarkable, Agnes praised, surveying the massive crater Violet had created. Violet, however, remained dissatisfied. It's not enough. I still can't control it properly. Agnes smiled knowingly. Then let's continue. Unlike Ruby and Sasha, Violet focused solely on mastering her elemental abilities. Her disinterest in martial arts, a philosophy Scat Hack strongly opposed, meant she risked becoming a glass cannon. But Violet didn't care. Her mind was elsewhere. Was it really a good idea to leave Victor alone with Scat Hack? The thought gnawed at her, filling her with both anger and unease. But she pushed those feelings aside and resumed her training. 2 weeks later. 2 weeks had passed since the training began, and Ruby and Sasha were finally starting to see tangible results. Their vampire physiology allowed them to recover in mere minutes, enabling them to train relentlessly without the need for long breaks. Sasha's progress was largely thanks to Lakis, who had stepped in as an intermediary. Your basics were a disaster, Ruby said, watching Sasha execute a proper move for the first time. But you're improving. As expected, Scat Hack was right. Of course she was, Lakis chimed in with a proud smile. Mother isn't the strongest female vampire for nothing. Ruby nodded in agreement. Let's keep going. At this rate, you'll learn the basics in 2 months. After that, we'll move on to the vampire count transformation. Building their foundations, Ruby didn't need much work on her basics. Instead, she focused on refining her powers and adapting Scat Hack's martial arts techniques to her personal style. Unlike her mother, who preferred weaponry, Ruby leaned toward using her raw powers alongside martial arts. Once I master the basics, it'll be up to me to improve on my own, right? Sasha asked, wiping sweat from her brow. Exactly, Ruby confirmed. Mother always says we must carve our own paths. She only teaches the foundations, never the entire art. Sasha frowned. Why doesn't she teach everything? What's the point of holding back? Qualification, Pepper answered nonchalantly. Sasha glanced at her, confused. What do you mean by qualification? Pepper tilted her head toward Ruby. Ruby should explain. She's the heir to our clan. Ruby took a deep breath before speaking. Mother has had many disciples over her lifetime, but not all of them were qualified to inherit everything. Only those she deemed worthy could learn her full martial art. Lakis nodded in agreement. She told me the same thing. She's incredibly selective. Sasha raised an eyebrow. She's strict, huh? She didn't even teach her daughters everything. Not exactly, Ruby replied. Mother's martial art has 4 main pillars: strength, speed, resistance, and power. She trained each of us in the area where we excelled most. Ruby's demonstration. Ruby stepped away from the group and gestured to Sasha. Attack me with your power. Sasha hesitated, but then complied. Her body crackled with lightning as she appeared before Ruby and aimed a strike at her face. The moment her fist connected, Ruby's entire body transformed into solid ice. Ouch! Sasha winced, shaking her hand. It felt like she had punched a steel wall. Ruby's voice was calm as the ice began to melt. Using my power, I can encase my body in an impenetrable shield of ice. It's not just a layer over my body, it is my body. Sasha frowned. It's similar to how I use lightning to coat myself, right? Ruby shook her head. Not quite. Your lightning acts like a cloak. It surrounds your body but doesn't integrate with it. For instance, you can't use lightning to enhance your brain activity. Can you? Sasha's eyes darkened. I can, but it would fry my brain. Ruby smirked coldly. Exactly. My technique is different. By turning my body into ice, I can endure extreme attacks without shattering my body. The ice melts back into flesh, and my vampire regeneration handles the rest. Lakis chimed in. This level of control is only possible because Ruby was born with the power to manipulate water. Without it, her body wouldn't survive the constant destruction and regeneration. Sasha shuddered at the thought. That's insane. You're willingly destroying yourself over and over again. Ruby nodded. It's not pleasant, but it's effective. Mother believes pain is a teacher. Pepper's strength. Ruby turned her attention to Pepper. Pepper was trained in strength. It may not seem like it, but she's incredibly powerful. Watch this. Pepper stepped forward, cracking her knuckles. She assumed a karate stance and yelled, "Why? Boom!" The shockwave from Pepper's punch obliterated the forest within a 1-kilometer radius. Sasha's jaw dropped. Bloody hell! Ruby smacked Pepper on the head. You've gotten weaker. In the past, you could clear 3 kilometers with a single punch. Pepper pouted. But there's no one to fight. I'd rather watch anime. Sasha stared in disbelief. This is considered weak? Ruby smirked. By comparison, Mother can destroy 100 kilometers in a straight line without leaving a trace. Pepper's strength is nothing compared to hers. You're all monsters, Sasha muttered. Pepper grinned. How rude. You're just weak. Lakis speed. Ruby gestured to Lakis. Lakis was trained in speed. Her abilities revolve around fog, which gives her unmatched mobility and agility. Sasha's competitive spirit flared. I wonder who's faster. Lakis smirked. We'll test it someday. Scat Haka's legacy. Ruby continued. Mother's primary martial art is Sojitsu, the art of the spear. The other disciplines are just hobbies for her. She only learned them because she was bored. Sasha stared blankly. She created an entire martial art because she was bored? That's terrifying. Ruby nodded. Unlike other vampires who waste centuries on trivial pursuits, Mother has spent 2,000 years perfecting herself. And yet, she's not the strongest vampire alive. The Vampire King, Sasha whispered. Ruby's expression turned serious. Yes, if even Mother doesn't claim a guaranteed victory against him, it speaks volumes. A heavy silence filled the air. Victor's struggle. Meanwhile, in the Colosseum, Victor had exceeded Scat Haka's expectations over the past 2 weeks. He had honed his instincts, mastered the great sword, and begun to integrate his powers naturally into his fighting style. But the strain of his bloodlust was becoming unbearable. Scat Hak stood over him as he writhed on the ground, clutching his throat. His skin darkened to a deep purple, his body contorted in pain, and bone-like wings erupted from his back. I underestimated your bloodlust, Scat Hak muttered, spinning her spear. But you're no ordinary vampire. Victor's eyes snapped open, glowing an unnatural blood red. Where? A demonic scream shook the Colosseum. Scat Haka's lips curled into a wicked smile, her cheeks flushed with excitement. I knew it. I was right. Ha 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 ha. She twirled her spear and crouched into a battle stance. Now eat. Let's have fun.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Violet sighed. Darling. Violet muttered worriedly as she looked towards the Colosseum. Even though the structure couldn't be seen in the distance, Violet instinctively knew where Victor was. Don't distract yourself in a fight. A cold voice spoke from beside Violet. Violet turned quickly and tried to defend against the oncoming attack, but she wasn't quick enough. Hilda kicked Violet in the face, and her kick was so hard it threw Violet across the hill. Violet was buried under a pile of rocks. Never let your guard down. Always be prepared to use your powers at any time. Remember, you are the heiress of Clan Snow. Everyone envies you, and everyone loves you, but at the same time, you have a lot of enemies. Hilda straightened her white glove and continued watching the place where Violet was buried. HAAs. Pure fire covered Violet's body, and soon she came out of the rocks. She looks at Hilda. Now I understand who was inflating my mother's narcissism. It's not a lie if it's true. Violet rolled her eyes. You don't understand how special your clan is. Hilda appears beside Violet and whispers. Huh. Slap. Hilda slapped Violet on the cheek and sent her flying again. You've let your guard down again. She spoke coldly as she watched Violet, who was buried in the same area. Bitch, stop hitting my face. Violet yelled angrily. Your darling would be disappointed to see how weak you are right now, Hilda said coldly. Huh. Violet's face darkened, her eyes lifeless. Then, slowly, her body began to release a dark red pressure. This was killing intent. She was irritated, and Hilda saw it. That's it, use the anger. Our power comes from that anger, but dash. Hilda walked towards Violet with elegant steps, and slowly, Hilda's image was blurred. It was as if she was drifting in and out of existence. Violet's fist started to catch fire, and as soon as she punched the air, a massive amount of flames flew towards Hilda. Anger out of control is just a waste of power. Hilda's image slowly faded. Tisk, Violet realized that the attack didn't touch Hilda. She started using her senses in an attempt to find Hilda. Your way of using power is very raw. Violet heard a cold voice behind her. Violet turns around, and soon she sees Hilda's hand inches away from her face. Hilda's 2 fingers began to be covered in fire. Looks like we have to work on all your control again. She finger-flicked Violet's forehead. Boom! With one simple move, she managed to create an explosion that sent Violet flying away. As she looked at her clan heiress, Hilda thought, dang, Agnes did a sloppy job again. I should have taken over Violet's training when she got home. Hilda has noticed Violet's improvement this week, but that's not enough for her since she is a strict woman. So she will not be satisfied with this little improvement. Hilda visibly sighed. She looks at her shadow and, seeing the shadow of a man within her shadow, she said, Oda. Yes, Lady Hilda, the shadow's mouth moved, and she heard a voice in her head. Go get Lady Violet, and when you finish this work, I want you to get in touch with Kaguya. I want her to come home. The man was silent, and he seemed to be thinking about something. Kaguya was fired from her task by the Snow Clan heiress. I know, but she's still part of Clan Snow. She has to go through all the legal processes to get fired from her maid job. She also needs to find her new co-worker. Yukiha, are 2 maids not overkill? He can't help but ask. You're asking a lot of questions today, huh? Hilda spoke. I'm just trying to understand. Is this man so important to receive a servant from Clan Snow and Clan Blank? I don't know. But that was Lady Agnes's order and Lord Adonis. Initially, she would just be a servant of Clan Snow, but now that Violet has fired her maid and transferred the right of the master to her husband, things just ended up like that. Hilda frowned a little. For some reason, Lord Adonis is very supportive of Violet's new husband. He seemed very happy that he found a son-in-law. Lady Agnes doesn't seem to like Lady Violet's new husband very much, but in the end, it doesn't matter if Lady Agnes doesn't like it. After all, when Lord Adonis wants something, Lady Agnes will do anything to please him. She thought. Oda didn't know what to say. He just kept thinking about what he heard. Finished with the questions? Now go to your job. Yes. Human world. Outside Queens. On top of a building, a white-haired man was sitting on the balcony while drinking a bottle of tequila. As he stared up at the starry sky, he was thinking about Jessica. I fucked up, He knew he'd screwed up, he was aware of it, but he couldn't apologize. Whatever. I'll think about this problem in the future. He took a sip of tequila. This is not what I expected from our meeting, my son. Johnny's whole body shivered when he heard the sudden voice behind him. He was startled. Johnny turned and looked at the visitor who was standing on top of a water tank. You keep doing this, huh? Can't you show up in the normal way? Old man. Normal? Adam put on a confused face. I'm just an ordinary professor working at an ordinary university. I'm the most normal person you'll ever meet, my son. Yeah, whatever. Johnny turned and took another sip of tequila. Adam jumped slightly and landed next to Johnny. He sniffs the air and soon displays a face of disgust. Wolf, human, vampire, and witches. Looks like you're still the same. You can't control where you put your dick. Huh. Yes, you know how things are. I'm just like you. I've never slept with a human or a witch, and especially with leeches. Hey, you're wrong on the last one. I haven't slept with her yet. Johnny rolled his eyes. Yet, huh? Adam's eyes sparkled for a few seconds. He clearly didn't like that answer, but as soon as he felt disappointment, he decided not to poke his nose in this matter, and he just started stroking his mustache. A habit he always does when he's thinking about something. And Johnny knew about that habit. He waited for his dad to finish thinking and took another sip of tequila. Damn it, this is good. Well, whatever. As long as you don't have a child with these women, I won't mind too much. And you wouldn't listen to me anyway. Hey, glad you know that. Johnny chuckled. And to think you're my heir. If the king discovers that, then, just imagining his alpha's disappointed face, Adam's feeling of disappointment grows. Well, I still have Edward. Even though his mother doesn't have the best genes, he's still my son. Ugh, my son who has the most potential is a drunk who can't control which hole he wants to put his dick in. And my youngest son is a good kid who listens to me. But he's weak. What have I done to deserve this? Adam also had his problems. Fuck Dash, Johnny was going to talk bad about the king. But he stopped when he felt a huge pressure seeping from Adam's body. Don't you dare continue. He spoke with a growl as his teeth shifted, and his face took on a more animalistic shape. Even if you were my son, I will not tolerate offense to the king, and Ovel, be //JNN. Johnny swallowed hard and turned away. Adam continued watching his son for a few seconds, but soon he relaxed his expression. Let's talk. Adam approaches the balcony. I heard that my sister is in love with a leech. Johnny ignored what his father said and spoke. Crack. He broke the concrete with his grip. He didn't expect to hear that. Calm down. My daughter has no interest in a leech. She wouldn't dare lie to me. Where did you get this information? The Lost Club. Madam contacts her? Adam's eyes glittered menacingly, and he thinks, if that's true, then it's that woman who investigated Victor. Maybe this information could be true. Oh, I never thought someone of your status would visit that place. Huh, fool. Don't you know what kind of place that is? Have your senses gone numb? Johnny was confused by his father's reaction. Stupid son, that place is a haven for lone wolves. Madam is a witch, but at the same time, she is considered an alpha by the wolves. Adam purposely didn't mention that Madam also houses witches who are tired of living in the witch nation. Heh, that old woman is that important, huh? Adam didn't say anything, but soon he changed the subject, ignoring my daughter's love issues. Adam sighed. What did you want? You're being hunted, Johnny spoke simply, then took another sip of tequila. Huh, do you think I don't know? Boy, who do you think you're talking to? Oh, tell me. The Horseman clan, right? Those fucking twins think they can threaten my family, and I won't know. Adam spoke in contempt. Then he continues, if you came to talk to me, then you must have gotten this information from that disgusting leech. Crack. Johnny broke the tequila bottle with his grip. Don't talk about her like that. He growled. What a waste. Adam totally ignored his son's threat. Adam looks at his son, and his eyes sparkled intensely. Before you threaten your father, you must first be prepared to follow through with your threat. Johnny turned his face away. He wasn't going to fight his father since he knew he was going to lose. It was a futile fight. Adam shakes his head in disappointment. Then he turns around. Coward, if it were someone else I know, he would have jumped on me and fought, regardless of whether he was going to lose or not. In a way, he's more wolf than you. He seems to be crazy, This person you talked about. Johnny wasn't offended. It's been a long time since he stopped caring what his father told him. Indeed, he's crazy, but at the same time, he's not a coward. He would fight me just because I offended his wife. Even though he knew he would lose, he would fight anyway, and he would probably evolve in battle and have fun fighting. That's the kind of man he is. Adam turns his face and looks at Johnny, and then he flashes a small smile on his face. Like I said, he's more wolf than you, despite being a leech. Soon Adam disappears. Johnny looks at the full moon. His eyes were shining brightly. He wouldn't deny it. Hearing his father talking like that about someone else affected him a little. I wonder who this man is. Lucy Bass. Are you happy now, Karen? Lucy spoke with a calm face. Yeah. Though Karen's face was smiling, veins throbbing in her head could be seen. Nice job hiring a mercenary to do an important task. Wow, good job. You really are a genius. Einstein would be embarrassed to know that there is anyone with such a large amount of IQ. She started to clap her hands. You don't need to talk like that. Johnny is trustworthy. A vein popped in Karen's head. She hits the table with a crash and screams. In which world is a mercenary trustworthy? Lucy puts his hand to his ear. Her voice was so loud that his senses were overwhelmed for a few seconds. Take easy, Karen. Johnny is trustworthy. I can promise you that. I've worked with him a few times, and he won't say anything. Karen was almost bursting with rage again. Sigh. She sighs and looks at Lucy with cold eyes. You know what? I'm done. Karen left the office. Wait. What will you do? Lucy got up from his chair and ran after Karen. I will speed up the ritual. We have all the necessary ingredients, and the only thing left that we need is the blood of a noble vampire. She takes a vial of blood and shows it to Lucy. And I already have that ingredient. But what about me? Fuck you. Karen held up her middle finger at Lucy. You never listen to me. Just get another vial of noble vampire blood. Karen's instincts were tingling like crazy. She had a feeling that if she didn't rush the ritual, she would never be able to complete what she wanted so badly. Lucy didn't expect this answer. He puts a hand on his chin. I pissed her off that much? Boss. A vampire ran beside Lucy. What? Lucy looked at his subordinate. They are here. The noble vampires. Huh. Lucy's face went paler than should be possible for a vampire. Looking at a coffin that was covered in blood, Karen picks up the vial and pours the contents of the vial into the coffin. When the contents inside the vial fell into the bloody coffin, the magic circle under the coffin began to glow crimson red. Seeing this, Karen said, "Success." Soon she starts to undress, and after taking off her clothes and becoming the way she came into the world, she enters the coffin. With this, I will be reborn. She lies down in the blood and closes the coffin. The moment she closed the coffin, the magic circle grew and covered the entire room. And soon the crimson light that was emanating from the magic circle grew stronger. If anyone entered the room, they wouldn't be able to see anything because of the light that was entirely blurring their vision. Lucy was walking briskly along his base. This is too soon. This is too soon. This is too soon. That wasn't the deal. Where are they? He yelled as he opened the hall door. Kaka, hello, Lucy. Lucy looked at the man. He had messy black hair, pale skin, red eyes, and a creepy, smiling expression on his face. The first impression Lucy had of this man was that he had several screws loose in his head. I know, Horseman, you're early. Yeah, my twin brother and I were looking forward to coming to the human world. You know? He started laughing again, as if he found something funny. He doesn't seem to be anxious, Lucy said, and then he looked at the other man who was sitting on the couch while drinking blood from a teacup. Like Einar, this man looked similar to the younger twin, the only difference being that he dressed more politely, and his hair was straight. Bright blood-red eyes, pale skin, shoulder-length straight black hair, and an expression that showed disinterest in everything. He was a man who had impeccable noble etiquette, but at the same time, he seemed to be dead inside. That was Lucy's impression of this man. Zwei Horseman? Lucy didn't know what to say. Unlike the younger brother who was easy to talk to, this man was simply impossible to understand what he was thinking. The man looks at Lucy and nods. Hello. He spoke in a dry tone. Then he turned his face and started drinking his tea. Kaka. Ignore my brother. You know how he is. It may not look like it, but he's anxious, right? Einar appears beside Zwei and forces a smile on his face. See? Lucy didn't know how to react when he saw Zwei's blank expression. Einar lets go of his brother's face. Let's talk business. Everyone could feel a little pressure coming from underground. Oh! Einar displayed a curious face. Below, Zwei spoke and drank the tea again. He didn't look interested. Looks like you guys rushed through the ritual. Einar spoke with the same goofy grin on his face. My partner was anxious, and she decided to rush the ritual. Lucy tried to comment indifferently, but Einar realized that Lucy was holding himself back from going underground. Kaka, let's go down. I want to see the results. Okay. Lucy nodded since he was also curious. Zwei got up from the couch and started walking ahead. Einar approached his brother and started making sounds like he was singing a song. Karen opened the coffin and left. She quickly started checking her body, but she immediately noticed something important. Nothing changed. What happened? She was trying to figure out what went wrong. She was so focused on her thoughts that she didn't notice someone approaching her. Kaka, are you disappointed? Nay, are you disappointed? Unconsciously, she made a fist and attacked the man's face. But her fist was held by another man. Stronger, Zwei spoke. Yeah, she got stronger. Einar just laughed at everything. Did the ritual work? Lucy asked as he looked quite anxious. I don't know, She started to speak, but was interrupted. N/O/vel/b/gen.c//om. The ritual failed. Einar chuckled. Impossible. We did everything right. Lucy couldn't believe it. He looked at both of them with the same smile on his face and said, Didn't you think it was too easy? Steal a sacred artifact from the church. Ask a witch to perform a ritual. Fill the coffin with the blood of the innocents, and use the blood of a random noble vampire. Then you put all those ingredients in the blender, and boom, you become a noble vampire. The two were silent, now that they thought about it. Was it really that easy to change races? Right? Of course, it's not easy. Are you underestimating the noble vampires? With the same silly smile on his face, he spoke in a serious voice. You might be called vampires, but you're not the real vampires. We are totally different species, and you are a subspecies of us, a flaw, a product that was created only for use as a weapon. You are no better than the ghouls. Lucy and Karen clenched their fists tightly, but he returned to the playful voice. You were successful this time. The ritual was correct. After all, you got a little stronger, right? But you didn't get reborn because the main ingredient was missing. Einar claps his hands, and soon a tall man appears beside the twins holding a briefcase in his hand. When did he get here? Karen and Lucy thought. The ritual to become a noble vampire is easy, but getting the last ingredient is an impossible task. He opens the briefcase, and soon everyone can see a small vial of blood. By the time he opens the briefcase, Karen and Lucy's throats are starting to go dry. They are looking at the bottle with thirsty eyes, but there is also a bit of fear in their eyes. They were afraid of a small vial of blood. That is, Lucy stammered. He didn't know what that blood was, but one thing he was sure of, he needed that blood. This blood. Karen was thinking the same thing as Lucy. Einar took the bottle out and showed it to them. The blood of the king. It's not the blood of his descendants. It's not the blood of his wives. It's his blood. The king's blood. The progenitor, the strongest creature on earth. The being that has been walking this earth for over 5,000 years. That's the last ingredient. Do you want? We want it. Lucy and Karen reached out and reached for the bottle. Do you really want it? He kept smiling as if he was luring two little rabbits into a trap. Yes, we want it. Buy him. He slammed the case closed with a loud bang. But I refuse. Kaka. Einar started laughing madly, and he looked like he was enjoying himself. 6 months later, around the Colosseum, a woman with long white hair, light blue eyes, and pale skin was looking at the Colosseum, which was in a degraded state. She was wearing a modern-made dress. Finally, that creepy killing intent has disappeared. She circles around the Colosseum and focuses her attention on the structures. Amazing. How did they manage to destroy this structure? I see several high damage resistance magic enchantments around, and yet the structure has been compromised. She spoke in a beautiful voice that sounded like the voice of an angel. Tisk. She puts her hand on her chin. I think it should be time anytime now. Tisk. N/O/vel/B//and.C//om. The woman looks to the side and sees a maid with oriental features. What dash? She was going to say something but couldn't because the maid turned her face away. Tisk. The woman was speechless. Can you at least try to hide your annoyance? I feel like I heard an insect talking to me. Of course, it must be my imagination. After all, insects don't have intelligence. The maid spoke as she looked around. The woman's expression started to look like an annoyed squirrel, but quickly her expression changed to a cool expression. Kagaya, don't be a child. I didn't want this job either, but I was given orders and I must follow them. Kagaya looks at the woman for the first time. You're right, Yuki. Sorry for my inappropriate behavior. Kagaya apologized. So, are we okay? Yuki smiled gently. Hell no. Kagaya displayed a professional smile. Yuki's smile broke. Oh, Kagaya, and who are you? Sasha appeared along with Ruby, Sienna, Pepper, Maria, and Lakis. Kagaya looks at Ruby and Sasha. I don't see or feel any drastic changes. Didn't they train? She thought. White hair, blue eyes, dressed as a maid, and accompanied by Kagaya. Pepper spoke. Suddenly, she made a water microphone and pointed at Ruby. The answer is? The Snow Clan. Papa Perrin, correct answer. Pepper laughed. Your reward is all the One Piece volumes. Ruby's eyes lit up. Everything. Pepper yelled. That is a good deal. Everyone ignored Ruby and Pepper's jokes. They were used to it. Except for Yuki, who was startled by Pepper's sudden scream. Kagaya looks at Yuki. She's not following me. She's just existing next to me. Then she turned her face away. Ruby and Sasha, who knew Kagaya the most, were speechless. What did you do to make her react like that? Sasha asked curiously. Tell me if you ever find out. Yuki spoke with a small sigh at the end. Who are you? Ruby asked. But we already know she's a Snow Clan maid. Pepper started to talk, but Lakis covered her mouth. She produced indecipherable sounds. Yuki bowed with traditional maid etiquette and said, At the order of Countess Agnes Snow and Count Adonis Snow, I came here to serve my new master, Lord Victor Walker. Ruby and Sasha opened their eyes a little in surprise. They didn't expect this. Tisk, Kagaya was annoyed again. She returns to her normal position and says, My name is Yuki Snow. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Pepper approached Yuki and took her hands. Yuki didn't expect this sudden intimate contact. Pepper started bombarding Yuki with questions. But unfortunately, Yuki was so surprised that she couldn't answer any questions. Sasha looked at Ruby for a few seconds, and then she nodded at Ruby like she was trying to say something. Understanding what Sasha implied, Ruby decided to keep an eye on Yuki. For Ruby, the action of sending a Snow Clan maid, who was the main clan, was quite suspicious. She was thinking that Yuki was sent to watch Victor, which would make sense. After all, their only heiress had married a stranger. Violet's clan must know about Victor, but they must not have cared at first. They must have been thinking that Victor would just be Violet's food, but suddenly, this food turned into Violet's husband. Ruby thought. She was trying to understand why Violet's clan sent a maid to Victor. For all of Ruby's intelligence, she could never deduce that Adonis, Violet's father, was quite interested in her daughter's new husband. They're coming? Sienna, who was leaning against the tree, said. She stopped her work just to see the result of her mother's new disciple, although Sienna's expectations were low. After all, they only trained for 6 months. In 6 months, he must have advanced a bit. Maybe he can face Pepper now, she thought. Suddenly, the Colosseum door began to slowly open, and the moment the door was opened, everyone suddenly felt very heavy. Yuki, who was younger than everyone present, fell to the ground. She felt like her whole body was heavy, and she could feel her instincts screaming danger. "D, darling?" Ruby stuttered a little. "T, this is him?" Sasha couldn't believe what she was seeing. "I am possible." Sienna opened her mouth in shock. She was the strongest of the group along with Lakis. She could see beyond Victor's killing intent. Has he improved so much? As expected, he went beyond what I thought. Lakis chuckled a little. She didn't seem affected by Victor's killing intent. As someone who has trained with Victor briefly, she knows how fast he gets better. To be honest, she felt it was unfair. Just for a brief comparison, he completely surpassed Pepper's level. And knowing my mother, she must have taught Victor tricks. So maybe he can fight vampires over 200 years old. Thinking that a man who is just 21 years old has already reached Pepper's level of power, Lakis can't help but feel sour. Kagaya exhibited a small smile when she noticed Victor's progress. She looked at Yuki, who was lying on the ground with sweat running down her body. Tisk, Kagaya's shadow covered Yuki. Although, for some reason, she doesn't like Yuki, Kagaya is still proud as a maid, and she wouldn't let the new maid be embarrassed in front of her master. T, thanks. Yuki got up from the floor. Maria stared coldly at Victor, who opened the door completely. Her body was giving small danger signals, but she ignored everything and concentrated on the man. He was wearing a full burgundy red suit, and on his hands, he had 2 white gloves that had a blood-red magic circle etched on top of the glove. And his back has a purple coat that was draped around his shoulders. And more importantly, his old blue eyes have completely disappeared, and now his eyes have turned blood-red. Finishing opening the door fully, he looked at everyone. "Oh!" He displayed a small smile. "Were you waiting for me?" Scat Hack appears behind Victor and looks at the group. She displays a seductive smile. "What are you doing?" Everyone was shocked, but it wasn't because of Victor's appearance, but because of Scat Hack's presence. Did she seem calmer? The old menacing presence that always existed around her had disappeared. And that wasn't all they noticed. There was the obvious change in her eye color. The old blood-red eyes that showed she was always hungry disappeared and were replaced by an emerald green, just like Ruby's. Scat Hack's green eyes look at everyone present, and then focus on Yuki. She looks at Victor. "Victor! Stupid! Control your instinct." "Oh, I forgot." He scratched his cheek a little. Suddenly, all the menacing pressure coming out of Victor's body disappeared. Sigh. Yuki sighed in relief, and then she started watching Victor. "This is my new master?" She didn't know how to feel. "Mother, your eyes." Ruby pointed with her hand that was shaking like crazy. Sasha was going to say something, but suddenly Sienna yelled. "What happened in that Coliseum?" Did you guys notice?" Scat Hack smiled. "It's obvious." Lakis and Pepper yelled. Victor takes a step, then suddenly disappears. Soon he appears beside Sasha and Ruby. "I miss you, Soon." He hugs the two. Ruby and Sasha immediately hug Victor. "Darling, husband." The two hugged Victor tighter. They couldn't deny they were lovesick too. Lakis, who observed what Victor did, immediately understood what he did. "That's my technique." She inadvertently bit her tongue. "Mother." Lakis looked to her mother for answers. "Hada." Scat Hack didn't say anything. She just laughed sensually. "Do not laugh." Sienna screamed. "Oh, have you grown up enough to try to boss me around?" Scat Hack's eyes changed to blood red, and her pressure changed to something more menacing. Sienna recoiled. "Sorry, Dash." "Ha ha ha." Scat Hack chuckled. She looked at her daughter with emerald green eyes. "I'm kidding." The pressure disappeared as if it hadn't existed. Lakis, Pepper, and Sienna didn't know how to react. Their mother playing? Is the sun rising in this world where night is eternal? Maybe the vampire king got gingerbent? The 3 sisters looked at Victor, and they wondered, what in the name of the 7 hells happened in that Coliseum? Their mother didn't seem willing to say anything, and they know the minor threat she made to Sienna was a warning not to meddle too much. "How are you? Are you okay? Did you sleep well? Did someone mistreat you? Oh, you must be thirsty." Victor looked more like a mother than a husband. "Darling, we're fine." "Stop undressing," Ruby quickly said when she saw that Victor started taking off his suit. "Why, yeah, we can control our bloodlust." Sasha quickly grabbed Victor's hands. Oh. For some reason, he looked disappointed. But you were still thirsty, right? He displayed a loving smile. They couldn't deny what he said. Okay. When we get back, I'll be your meal, he spoke with a teasing smile. Ruby and Sasha's faces turned a little red, but they wouldn't deny that they had high expectations, especially since it had been a while since they had drunk his blood. Victor looks at a white-haired woman standing next to Kagaya. Then he takes a step and disappears again. Who are you? He appeared beside the woman. The woman's body shivered all over. Aga! The woman screamed in a cute voice. She quickly looks to the side and sees Victor's eyes. White hair, blue eyes, wearing maid's uniform. He started walking around Yuki as if he was sizing her up. For some reason, Yuki felt a little nervous. He stopped in front of Yuki, Violet's maid up. Yuki raised her head a little. After all, Victor was very tall. W wrong? She stuttered a little as she looked into Victor's red eyes. Oh! He exhibited a small smile and lightly touched Yuki's chin. Tell me, who are you? I. Yuki's face turned completely red. She wasn't used to having so much intimate contact. You? I'm your maid. For some reason, she found it difficult to speak that sentence. My maid? My maid? Victor displayed a confused face. Yes. Victor puts his hand to his chin as if he's thinking. Kagaya, he called in an orderly tone. Kagaya approached Victor. Yes, Lord Vic dash. She stopped talking when she felt Victor stroking her head. She felt goosebumps all over her body for a moment. What do you think about this? He asked. He looks at Kagaya's black hair and nods, satisfied. He was missing this, and Scat Hack wouldn't let him stroke her head. It doesn't matter to me, and it was Lady Violet's parents' order. I don't have much of an opinion on the matter, Kagaya said. Yuki almost put on an angry squirrel face, but she managed to control herself and keep her poker face. Victor displayed an unreadable smile. Lord Victor, you may not know, but I am also your personal maid now. Lady Violet fired me and transferred the master rights to you. But first, we need to talk about my salary and what kind of contract we're going to make. Oh, but I can't pay you, you know. He chuckled. She nodded in agreement. As expected, I'm going to have to fire you. Kagaya's entire body shook. Maybe in the future, I'll hire you as my maid, but now, I'm broke. Victor stopped stroking Kagaya's head and slowly backed away. He looked at Kagaya, who held his suit. You can take out a loan, and in the future, when you earn money, you can pay me back. He flashed a smile. Are you sure? Why, yes, she stuttered a little. She was thinking about her vacation. But when she remembered that the sacrifice was for the greater good, she didn't care. It's for the greater good, after all. Ha ha! Victor laughed happily. Then he lifted Kagaya and looked her in the eyes. You can't go back now. Looking into Victor's blood-red eyes, Kagaya sighed and thought, whatever. Strangely, she no longer cared. Put me down, please. Of course. Sasha and Ruby were staring at Victor with a deadly glare. Why is he acting like this? Is it unconscious? Ruby spoke coldly, the air around her cooling rapidly. Is he becoming a playboy? Sasha whispered in a dangerous voice. Scat Hack appears behind Sasha and Ruby. She wraps her arm around Sasha and Ruby. Yeah, he might not realize it, but he instinctively knows how to act with women. When I questioned him about it, he said his mom taught him about women. Anna. Ruby sighed. Well, she seems to be that kind of mother. Sasha sighed at the end. I will visit her in the future. She seems to be interesting. Scat Hack flashed a smile. Ruby turns her face to her mother, and, looking into her mother's emerald green eyes, she says, why this sudden interest in my darling's family? The corners of Scat Hack's mouth turned up a little. Can I be interested in my disciple's parents? Ruby didn't know how to respond. Yes, you can, but don't get too close to him. Sasha growled and slaps Scat Hack's hand. Then she walks closer to Victor. Kaka. She's jealous. Mother. Ruby looked at her mother. Don't look at me like that, my daughter. You're going to make a hole in my head with your gaze. You dash. Ruby was about to say something, but suddenly everyone could hear a loud scream. Darling. Yuki, Maria, and Sienna put their hands over their ears. Ugh, Pepper covers her ears. How does her throat work? Does she have a superpower that raises the volume of her voice or something? Victor quickly looked up at the sky. Then his smile grew, and he pulled away from everyone and opened his arms. Everyone looked to where Victor was looking, and they could see a beam of fire in the air. She's flying? That's so cool. Pepper's eyes sparkled. Heh, she finally got better, that stupid girl, Scat Hack chuckled. Violet started to descend at high speed towards Victor, and soon a small violet-shaped meteor hits Victor. Everyone expected a big explosion to happen, but unexpectedly, before Violet touched Victor, her power completely disappeared. Darling, darling, darling. She has improved in her power control, Ruby praised. Violet, Victor hugged Violet tighter. How are you? Are you okay? No, I'm not fine. I need my vitamin V. Vitamin V? He asked, confused. She puts her finger to Victor's lips. I'm reloading now, then she hugs him tighter. Victor smiled lovingly, and soon he started stroking Violet's head. While Victor and Violet were in their world, Luna suddenly appeared. Lady Scathack, you are late. The game starts in 3 days. We were supposed to be in. She was going to say something, but when she looked at Victor, she was speechless. He got stronger? Oh, the game, huh? I totally forgot about it, Scathack said. Let's go. We need to go to the capital. Scathack started walking towards her mansion. When Luna looked at Scathack, she was speechless again. She hadn't realized it because she was in a hurry, but her eyes weren't red anymore. What happened in that Colosseum? She thought inwardly. Scathack has stopped walking and looks back. Aren't you coming? The women look at each other and nod. On the walk back home, a strange situation was happening. Victor was walking with Violet sitting on his shoulder, and beside him were Ruby and Sasha, and a little further back were Yuki, Kaguya, Maria, and Luna. I didn't expect this, Yuki commented in disbelief. What? Maria asked. Kaguya and Luna were a little surprised to hear Maria speak, but they didn't convey that surprise on their faces. I didn't know my master was married to the 3 flowers of the vampire world. 3 flowers? What is this weird title? The 4 flowers of the vampire world is a title given by all male vampires. The title speaks of Ruby, Sasha, and Violet, along with the youngest daughter of the king, who was born with supernatural beauty even to vampires. Oh, she understood now. So you're surprised he's married to 3 of the 4 flowers in the vampire world? Yes, Yuki replied. Maria looks at Victor, who was carrying Violet on his shoulders, seeing him laughing and happily chatting with his wives. She adjusts her glasses and speaks with a serious expression. I have a feeling that if he meets the daughter of the king of vampires, they will end up together. The 3 maids were surprised by this bold statement. Impossible, Kaguya immediately spoke. Oh, why? Maria asked. Lord Victor is a faithful man, and he won't run after other women if he already has 3 wives. Maria, Luna, and Yuki looked blankly at Kaguya. What? Didn't you realize you were flirting with him a few minutes ago? Maria spoke. That's not flirting. What is it then? Yuki asked. This is a form of thanks. Yes, this is a form of thanks. After all, I'm a hard-working maid. The 3 maids rolled their eyes. Believe me, he can treat me like that, but he doesn't have any hidden desires. It's just the way he is. He's a caring man. The 3 were silent and decided not to prolong the conversation. They knew it would be useless to say something now, and also because they realized they were getting close to the mansion. Before we go, Victor and I should take a decent shower. They had a bath in the Colosseum, but they were very simplified, and the bathroom was created with that intention, because in training, luxuries are not allowed. Yeah, you're right, Scathack, Victor agreed, and he started walking in a random direction. Did he know the location of the bathroom? Of course not, but he didn't need to know the location of the bathroom. After all, he knew that he would eventually find one of the bathrooms in this gigantic mansion. Let's go. Scathack nodded and followed Victor. Wait! Violet, Ruby, and Sasha yelled simultaneously. Then they disappeared and appeared in front of Victor and Scathack. What? Victor and Scathack asked at the same time. Are you guys going to take a shower together? Ruby yelled. Yeah? Victor turned his head a little confused. And don't you realize the situation is weird? For God's sake, she's my mother. She is your mother-in-law. Oh, now that you say it's true. Victor nodded. Master, you are my mother-in-law. He looked at Scat and spoke with shock visible on his face. Yeah, did you forget? She smiled seductively. Well, I was busier trying to survive. Just remembering that he had every part of his body taken out in grotesque ways made his body shudders a little. He's not going to lie and say he's not a little traumatized by the training that he went through, but as time went by, he got used to it and the pain became tolerable. If Scat asked him to train again, would he go? Of course, yes. He liked to train with her, and he also loved the sense of progress. The feeling of growing stronger was something very addictive. The three wives were speechless. Wait, from the way you're reacting like everything is normal, don't tell me you guys have already done this. Sasha yelled. Yes, I was beaten every day in a lot of different ways. And it was Scat who carried me to the bathroom. Victor nodded. Violet's body began to release a dark, distorted pressure. Her eyes turned dark, and she looked at Scat. What? She smiled teasingly. Before Violet did something stupid, Ruby quickly held her up like a sack of potatoes. Put me down, she spoke in a distorted voice. Ruby ignored Violet and looked at her mother. Darling, go shower with us. You're going to shower alone. Hell no. I'll do what I want. And you can come with us. Mother. Ruby didn't believe what she heard. What? Realizing that this is not going anywhere, Victor said, I'm taking a shower. Follow me if you want. Now give me Violet. He approached Ruby and picked up Violet and carried her like a princess. Violet quickly hugs Victor's neck and glares at Scat menacingly. Soon, he walked in a random direction. The people around were speechless when they saw Victor treating Violet like a teddy bear. Well, let's go. Scat soon followed Victor. Sasha and Ruby still couldn't believe what they were seeing. Wait! The two shouted in unison and followed Victor. Ruby and Sasha weren't alone. Everyone who knew Scat personality enough to tell what kind of person she was weren't believing what they were seeing either. Only one question remained in these people's minds. What happened in that damn Coliseum? In an unnecessarily large, luxurious bathroom, Victor, Violet, Ruby, Sasha, and Scat were showering the way they came into the world. This is weird, Sasha spoke up. Scat pass me the shampoo, Victor asked. Scat who was in the bathtub, looks to the side, and, seeing the shampoo, she takes it and throws it to Victor. Take it. Victor raises his hand and catches it. Thanks. Then he goes back to washing Violet's hair. Violet didn't want to think about anything right now. Her mind was blank, and she was just enjoying it. This is definitely weird, Sasha yelled. Victor, who was washing Violet's hair, and Scat who was in the bathtub, looked at Sasha and spoke at the same time. What? Sasha's face turned red with frustration. This whole situation is weird. What's as weird, girl? Sasha's head seemed to be fanning out in anger. The fact that my husband and I are bathing naked next to my mother. That's what's weird. Ruby spoke in a much cooler tone than usual. Even the water around her seemed to be creating little blocks of ice. Scat hand me the soap. Take it. She takes the soap and throws it towards Victor. Victor takes the soap and then starts washing every corner of Violet's body. Ruby just looked at all this with even colder eyes. She looked at Violet, trying to get some help, but she was speechless when she saw Violet's face that looked like someone who had entered a state of enlightenment. You're thinking too much. She heard her mother's voice. She looked at her mother and saw that she leaned against the bathtub and closed her eyes. Just relax, Doc. Sasha and Ruby were almost freaking out internally. I'm done. Ruby and Sasha looked at Violet and saw her writhing on the floor with a happy expression. They could even see that her eyes were unfocused. To be honest, they were a little scared. Violet seemed to be out of her mind. This massage technique is amazing. Victor chuckled. Yeah, I know, right? Scat exhibited a small smile. Ruby and Sasha couldn't take it anymore and were about to explode in anger and demand an explanation. "You guys are next," Victor said as he walked towards Ruby and Sasha. Huh. The two did not know how to react. Double eight. Ruby started to stutter when she saw Victor approaching with that visible thing swaying back and forth as if trying to hypnotize her. "Why, yeah, I'm not ready yet." Sasha got up and tried to run away. She didn't want to end up looking like Violet. She was going to die of embarrassment. "No excuses. And I need to give you my blood, too." Victor's eyes flashed a dangerous red. Ruby and Sasha tried to run away, but it was useless. Victor appeared beside them, and then caught the two like they were sacks of potatoes. "No!" The two screamed. Scat Hack opens one of her eyes. "What a monster I created!" As expected of me, she nodded in satisfaction. Then she closed her eyes and relaxed again. "Then? Who are we waiting for?" Victor spoke out loud with a neutral expression on his face. "Shouldn't we be running or something? I heard we're late." Victor was wearing the outfit he got from Scat Hack. "I don't want to run. I just bathed," Scat Hack said. She was wearing her usual form-fitting battlesuit. "We are waiting for my foolish disciple." "Oh." Victor was interested. "Is she strong?" "Yes, she is." Scat Hack flashed a smile. "Interesting." Victor approaches Yuki and starts stroking her head. Yuki's face turned red, but she quickly managed to control her expression. "What are you doing, Master?" Kaguya went out somewhere, saying she needed to sort out some contract issues. "Scat Hack won't let me stroke her hair, and my wives are like that. So, in the end, you're left." Yuki was speechless. That was supposed to be an explanation. Speaking of Scat Hack, Victor still remembers when he tried to stroke Scat Hack's hair. "What are you doing, stupid disciples?" Scat Hack asked with neutral eyes as she looked at Victor, who tried to pat her head. "I've been trying to relax. It's been 2 months, you know." Victor spoke. Then he tried to stroke her head again. When his hands would have touched Scat Hack's hair, the woman disappeared. "Stupid disciple, are you treating me like a child?" Scat Hack's red eyes glittered dangerously. Victor made an expression. "I wish Kaguya were here." He spoke in a sad voice. Scat Hack was speechless when she saw Victor's reaction. "Stop thinking about bullshit." She turned her face and started walking. "Let's take a shower, and then we have to go back to training." Victor wasn't motivated. He knows that the training she was talking about is him being beaten daily. In the first month, it was fun, but then it just became boring. He wasn't feeling his progress, even though Scat Hack said several times that he was progressing. But would he stop fighting because of it? Of course not. He likes to fight no matter the season or the time of day. But he just wasn't motivated. "If you make a little cut on my body, I'll let you do what you want," Scat Hack said. N/O/vel/B//and.C//om. Victor's eyes changed to a bright blood red, and his whole body began to give off a dangerous sensation. Scat Hack smiled seductively. "You look motivated." Victor takes his great sword. "Let's go. I have an important mission to do." He spoke in a surprisingly serious voice. "The Inquisition is released, and I have to hunt a 2,000-year-old vampire. All for the greater good. God bless me." He seemed more motivated than the very hunters who had faced Scat Hack in the past. Scat Hack, a vampire over 2,000 years old, didn't know how to react to Victor's strange words at that moment. "Sigh." Victor sighed. In the end, he couldn't scratch her body, and he was depressed for a few days. "What happened to them?" Pepper asked in curiosity as she looked over at Ruby, Violet, and Sasha, who were sitting back to back with addled faces. "They seem out of their minds," Lakis spoke. "Ruby." Sienna appears accompanied by Luna. She approaches Ruby. "Are you all right, sister?" she asked, a little worried. She called Ruby several times in an attempt to get her sister to respond. But Ruby didn't answer anything. She seemed to be staring into space. "They just experienced something I taught Victor." Scat Hack flashed a mysterious smile. "It's a technique I learned when I was bored." The technique is a simple massage that relaxes the whole body, and it was a technique used by an assassin from the past. "Assassin?" Sienna raised an eyebrow. "Yes. He would kill the victim by massaging them. And when the victim was completely relaxed, he would hang them, a quick and simple job." Scat Hack nodded to herself. I learned this technique and improved it. Now, this technique can kill a being simply because the being has become too relaxed and has stopped thinking. Just what kind of nonsense is this woman talking about? A massage technique that can kill because it makes you stop thinking? Those were the thoughts of Lakis, Pepper, and Sienna. Interested? Do you want to try it? Scat laughed and pointed to Victor, sitting on the floor with Yuki, who had a completely red face, in his lap. Victor looked at the three sisters. Then he smiled and gestured with his hand. Come and experience the pleasures of a massage that can make you meet the god himself. He looked like a loan shark offering a shady deal. I humbly declined. Pepper took a step back and hid behind her mother. Pass. Lakis also refused. Sienna's eyes sparkled. She seemed to be interested, she thought. A technique created by the mother. Maybe I can learn it too. That's it? What a shame. Victor looked sad. Oh, they arrived? Scat looks away. Everyone looked to where Scat was looking and saw nothing. They used their vampire senses to their fullest, but still, they couldn't feel anything. Only Sienna and Lakis could feel anything, but even so, it was a considerable distance for them. Victor focuses his gaze, and soon his world turns blood red. What is that? He asked curiously. Huh? Can you see, Victor? Yes. Since he couldn't explain what he was seeing, he decided to keep silent. Master, please. Let go of me. She was very embarrassed, but it's not like she hated it either. It was a strange feeling. Hell no. Yuki's expression changed to that of a sad squirrel. After a few minutes of waiting, everyone could hear the sounds of horses and armor in the distance. It was like an army was marching towards them. Oh, you're fast, Victor spoke as he looked at the woman who appeared beside Scat. Ka. Did you get to this place from your territory in less than a day? Looks like you and your army didn't fail in training. She laughed contentedly. Fway. Pepper couldn't react to the woman's sudden appearance. She was only startled when she saw a tall woman standing next to her. She wasn't the only one. Maria, Luna, and Yuki couldn't react either. You've gotten stronger, Eleanor, and that's not a good thing. Lakis spoke with a pitying expression. Yes. Sienna nodded in agreement with Lakis' words. Eleanor ignored the two women and said, Master, I'm glad to see you again. As she went to kneel, Scat grabbed her shoulders. Stop. You are a countess now. Never kneel to anyone, especially to I who am in the same status as you. She spoke in a cold voice that shivered all over Eleanor's spine. But you aren't just anyone, Master. Did you not listen to me? Scat eyes changed to blood red. Eleanor nods and adjusts her position. Good. Scat nodded in satisfaction. Then her eyes changed to sapphire green, which was something Eleanor noticed too. And Master, why you eyes? She was stuttering a lot. Yeah. What about them? Before Eleanor could answer anything, everyone could see an army of black knights approaching. Victor looked at the army with eyes shining with curiosity, since it was the first time he had seen something like that. An army of black knights with black lances bigger than the knights themselves. Their appearance was quite menacing, especially with those red eyes gleaming behind the helmet. They're all vampires. Victor's smile grew. He got up from the ground and released Yuki, who sighed in relief, and at the same time, felt disappointed for some reason. He totally ignored the frightening pressure the army was putting out and approached the horses since he was very curious about them. These horses, they're not normal. Victor looked at the horses and saw that the horses' eyes were blood red. Looking around, Victor saw a horse that was riderless, and soon he approached the horse and touched it. Then he started stroking the horse's head. Theory Reliant, the horse neighed happily. Hee. Aren't you a good girl? Tell me you're a good girl. He realized the horse was female. Theory Reliant, the horse hit the ground and brought her head closer to Victor. Eleanor, the horse's owner, seeing this scene from a distance, couldn't help but comment. To think that Chloe would like someone, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Chloe never let strangers touch her, and Victor touched her so easily. Kakaka, Scat laughed in amusement. She was looking at everything with great pleasure. It was like she was waiting for something to happen. Because of the noise of the army, The wives who were in a new, unknown world slowly began to wake up. Huh? Who are these stormtroopers? Ruby spoke a little groggy. They are Countess Eleanor Adrastia's personal army, Luna replied. Eleanor? Sasha looks at the tall woman. She had long flowing white hair, pale skin like all vampires, and bright golden eyes. She was wearing a simple red coat with black gloves on her hands, a simple white shirt that couldn't hide her H-cup breasts, along with a pair of black jeans that highlighted her big legs. And what stood out the most about her was that she was a tall woman. She looked almost the same height as Victor, but with the eyes of an expert maid, like Yuki and Luna, they could tell she was 190 cm tall. Eleanor. Hi, Sasha. How are you? She nodded to Sasha. I'm fine, thanks. Sasha stretched. Violet gets up off the floor and shakes her head a little to get rid of the feeling that her brain is melting. Yo, bitch from the West. How are you? Violet stretched a little like Sasha. You're still as rude as ever, Violet. And I'm fine, thanks. She spoke with a gentle smile. Oh, that's too bad. I thought you were going to die from a random thug someday. Veins began to pop in Eleanor's head. You're still tall as usual, huh? In fact, I think you've grown even more in height. Are you trying to cosplay a giraffe? Eleanor's smile threatened to break at any moment. Take a deep breath, Eleanor. The master is here. The master is here. Don't lose control. You know this bitch, she's always like that. It's nothing new. Fway. Is the earth shaking? Pepper looked at the ground with a cute face. Have you forgotten what Eleanor's power is, Pepper? Sienna looked at her sister. Pepper looks at Sienna with a cute expression. Of course I remember. Ito. She started to panic. Sigh. Sienna puts her hand to her head. Well, don't blame her so much. Pepper is a bit dumb sometimes. Lakis spoke. Yes, she forgets things easily. Pepper's face threatens to cry at any moment, but suddenly she is hit by a gust of wind in her face. Huey. She looks to the side and sees Victor swinging a completely black greatsword that was bigger than him, and he was twirling that big sword like it was nothing. Ha 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 ha, he looked like he was having fun. Hey, what are you doing with my sword? Eleanor quickly yelled. She walked with quick steps towards Victor, but inside she was a little shocked that he managed to lift all that weight like it was nothing. Swinging it? Victor replied as he turned his face away. That's not what I meant. Oh. Victor understood the problem. Can I borrow this horse and sword for a few hours? He asked with a polite smile while looking very noble. Theory. Reliant and Chloe approached Victor and whinnied as if asking permission to. Of course you can't. She practically screamed, and all her noble looks were gone like leaves in the wind. These are my things. Mine. And Chloe. Don't pay attention to him. Skay. Knowing he was wrong to take other people's things without permission, Victor obediently backed off. He looks at the horse and strokes the horse's mane. Don't worry, soon I will save you from this insensitive woman. He spoke like someone who was saying goodbye to a longtime companion. Theory Reliant, Chloe nodded, and everyone could see small tears in the horse's eyes. I know, but soon I will save you, Dot. Hey, why am I the villain of the story? Eleanor stomped on the ground in frustration. She was freaking out. Victor reluctantly pulls away from Chloe, but soon he feels someone touching his shoulder. What do you think you're doing? He heard Eleanor's cold voice. Huh? But weren't you the one who asked me to get away from Chloe? He spoke in an innocent voice. It's not that. Give me back my sword. Don't give me that. Oh, give it back. Fine, take it. Why does this seem so difficult to you? God damn it. Just take it. Victor puts down the sword and hands it to Eleanor, and he uses his other hand to cup his face as if covering his crying face. Eleanor ignores all this and grabs the sword hilt. Ah, you did it? Violet suddenly appears beside Eleanor. Ah, you made him cry. You made my husband cry. Look what you did. Violet spoke with a sad face. Eleanor's face changed several times. She gripped the hilt of her sword harder and looked at Violet with a face red from anger. But in the end, she wasn't a bad person. She took a long breath as if she were giving up on something. Fine, I will lend it, but for just an hour. Seriously? Victor turns his face away and looks at Eleanor with his eyes shining. Why, yeah, Eleanor was taken aback by this sudden change. Yes, Victor hugged Eleanor. WWH. She didn't know how to react to this sudden intimate contact. Soon Victor separates from Eleanor and approaches Violet. I love you, Violet. Victor kisses Violet on the mouth. Cha. Violet was taken aback as she returned Victor's kiss. Victor stops kissing Violet and runs into the forest. Wait, darling. We need to go to the capital. Don't go too far. Oh. Victor stopped running and stared at the forest as if he was thinking about something. Whatever. In the end, he just decided to swing the sword right there. He positioned himself and brandished the sword. Fush! A gust of wind flew in a straight line and destroyed several trees. Ha ha ha, this is fun. Then, he began to practice what he learned from Scat Hack. Every time he brandished the sword, powerful gusts of wind were felt throughout the group. Oh, some knights spoke. They looked impressed, although because of their training, they didn't react much. Here, take some blood. Ruby appeared beside Eleanor. Thanks, Eleanor drank all the blood in one gulp, and somehow, she was feeling better. Kaka. I knew something interesting was going to happen when he met you, Scat Hack chuckled. Master, I heard about him a few days ago, and I didn't believe it, but it's really true. Eleanor looked at Ruby, Sasha, and Violet. He actually married them? Yeah. He is also my last disciple. Huh? What do you mean, Master? Exactly what I mean. I won't teach anyone else for a long time. 6 months was just enough to teach him the basics. I need more time to cut this diamond. Scat Hack chuckled in amusement. Scat Hack's daughters, Victor's wives, and Eleanor didn't know how to react to Scat Hack's words. Especially Eleanor, since she hoped that her teacher would train her army again. Sienna, Lakis, and Pepper might not look it, but they were freaking out internally. Did he get so strong just learning the basics? Bullshit. They know that Scat Hack's teaching standard is very high if she said she only taught the basics. This means that she has completely strengthened Victor's foundation for the future. Watching Victor brandish the sword, Pepper also noticed something. He's using my force control technique. Sienna and Lakis didn't know how to react. Mother, did you teach our techniques to that man? Yeah, Scat Hack spoke like it was no big deal. And Mother, Ruby stuttered and didn't know how to react to this knowledge. She knows that learning what the sisters learned was not easy, especially Ruby, who had to go through a long period of torture to learn how to control her power precisely. He was like a sponge that soaked up everything I threw at him, and I thought, why not? I wanted to test how much he could learn, and in the end, he learned all 5 of the basic techniques. As expected from Darling, Violet was just as happy as if she was the one who had achieved something. Sasha was silent. She heard about Scat Hack techniques directly from Ruby's sisters, and she knows how absurd these techniques are. 5? Wasn't it 4? Lakis asked. It's 5. I just didn't teach any of you the last one because you weren't ready, Scat Hack said. Just out of curiosity, what is the 5th technique? Pepper raised her hand and asked in a cute voice. It's control, and the prerequisite for learning this technique is learning all 4 other techniques. She decided to demonstrate, since it's easier to show than to explain. Victor! What? Victor stopped brandishing the sword and looked at Scat Hack. Come here. Okay. And return Eleanor's sword. Okay, he replied with a little difficulty. He looks at the sword as if looking at a friend who has to say goodbye. Then after that, he positions himself as if he is about to throw something, then with a small gesture of strength, he throws the sword he was holding towards Eleanor. She couldn't believe he threw her sword like that. Seeing that Violet was going to try to get the sword, she said, Stop. You're going to get hurt. Violet stopped walking. She steps forward and raises her hand. Then a loud sound, as if a heavy object is colliding with another heavy object, is heard. She grabs the sword hilt and holds it comfortably on her shoulder. Even the ground beneath Eleanor was damaged with a cobweb of cracks. NOV.LB //JNN. Just how many kilos does that sword weigh? Those were the thoughts of Violet, Ruby, and Sasha, who were close to Eleanor. Seeing the shocked faces of Violet, Sasha, and Ruby, she explained, My sword is very heavy, and no ordinary vampire can lift it without the proper training. Why is it so heavy? Doesn't that hurt in a fight against another vampire? Ruby asked. That's because her sword wasn't created to fight other vampires. Lakis replied. Eleanor is silent. She can understand that Lakis said this on purpose to pique Ruby's curiosity. What do you mean? Ruby asked. Lakis didn't answer anything. Forget it, Ruby. That's not something you need to know right now. Sienna supported her sister. Ruby was silent. Why? Why can't she know? Sasha asked. Because this is a rule created by the king. Only the king or the leaders of the Count clan can give that kind of information. The rule is silenced by a magical contract, Violet explained. You seem to know about this, Violet. Ruby looked at Violet with a glint in her eyes. Oh, who told you about it? My mother, Agnes. Eleanor sighed. Remember, don't overdo it, okay? Then, hearing Scathacker's voice, the group looked toward the woman who was talking to Victor. Leaving that subject aside, for now, the women decided to watch what Victor was going to do. Okay, you don't have to keep repeating it. I don't want you to destroy the entire forest. The poor thing already suffers from my daughters and me. Where did this cheap sentimentality come from out of nowhere? This is not like you. Just hire a witch to revitalize the forest or something. I change, okay? In fact, my head is clearer now. Then, realizing she was getting off the subject, she said, just don't overdo it. And just use the ice. Okay. Scathach nods with satisfaction. Eleanor pointed her trembling finger at Scathach. This is my master. Victor's wives and Scathach's daughters were silent. They also didn't know what was going on. But one thing they were sure of, they didn't know how to react to this situation. They weren't used to Scathach reacting so differently. And Victor's wives aren't enjoying this change at all. Mostly Ruby. Victor relaxes his body a little and assumes a fighting stance. This position, it's the same as mine. No, it's a little different. Sienna analyzed. The magic symbol on Victor's glove starts to glow blood red. Just ice, just ice. He muttered over and over as if trying to concentrate. His fist is covered in an ice glove, and with a quick punch that only people like Sienna and Scathach could see, he punches the air. Boom! The women heard a noise as if the air had been broken. The air pressure was so intense that the forest could not take it, and it was torn apart, and there was no tree left to tell the story. And the effect of the attack is not over. After the wind pressure was gone, everyone could see that a small part of the forest had turned into a snowy area. Victor! Scathach disappears and appears beside Victor, and then she slaps him on the head. You overreacted. How am I going to explain anything now? But I did it right. Who? Where is this correct? I told you not to overdo it. I didn't exaggerate. It is the forest that is weak. It's not my fault. The two leaned their foreheads against each other and started facing each other as if they were about to fight at any moment. Monster. Master created another monster. Eleanor spoke. This is ridiculous. There's nothing left of the poor forest, Pepper commented. Sienna just looked at Victor with an emotionless face. It looked like she needed to reassess her opinion of him. Lakis didn't say anything either. I could do something like that. Violet didn't want to miss it. Let me show you. No. Sasha held Violet. Violet, just don't try to compete now, okay? We know that with your fire, you can wreak havoc. But just know, okay? Ruby spoke in a more assertive tone. I don't want my house to become a deserted place. Just hire a witch, Violet pouted. Ruby said nothing and stared at Violet. Okay. She sighed. Ladies, shouldn't we have left for the capital now? Luna suddenly reminded everyone. Oh, everyone has completely forgotten about that. Scathach and Victor move away from each other. Soon Scathach explains her technique. Originally, this attack was to freeze everything in a straight line, but Victor put in a lot of force, and because of that, there's nothing left to be frozen. This is like a combination of my technique and Pepper's technique, Sienna said. Yes, control is the fifth technique. Control focuses on using all four techniques as efficiently as possible. Now, do you understand why I never taught you? Yes, we're not ready yet, Ruby said. Yes. Unfortunately, you guys aren't as passionate about training as he is. She didn't want to discourage their daughters and say that they didn't have the same talent as Victor either. After all, She knows it was because of Victor's blood and mindset that made it possible for him to learn things in such a short time. If he only had the talent, he wouldn't be so strong in such a short time. The mentality of looking at training as fun made it possible for him to learn things faster, since when someone is having fun learning something, they learn faster. It's common sense. And she's sure her blood played a big part in his training, though she wasn't going to say it out loud. That's not true. We trained. Pepper was about to protest, but she stopped talking when she heard her mother's voice. Lakis lives in her sleep. You lived watching cartoons together with Ruby. And I also know you got weaker because you didn't practice what I taught you, and Sienna is always busy, and when she's not busy working, she's looking for a husband. Ruby, Lakis, and Pepper had no way to defend themselves from their mother's words. But Pepper said something in a low voice. It's not cartoon. It's anime. And mother. Sienna couldn't believe her mother said that out loud. Buffed. Victor laughed at the same time as Violet. Desperate woman. The two said at the same time. You guys... Sienna's eyes flashed blood red. We need to go. Luna screamed again. Everyone nodded in agreement. Victor was laughing a lot. He was currently riding Chloe, and as a special horse, the speed Chloe was running was very high. And this was a new experience for Victor. The horse was faster than any car he had ridden in the past, and he felt intoxicated when the wind hit him in the face. Violet, Ruby, and Sasha just looked at it with a dry look. Although Sasha was in the mood to join Victor, she thought it looked fun. Chloe, why did you abandon me? Eleanor was looking at Chloe like a woman who had been dumped by another man. Currently, the group was going to the capital in a luxurious carriage prepared by Eleanor, and in this carriage was Eleanor, Victor, Violet, Ruby, Sasha, and Scat Hack. Originally, Victor was supposed to be in the carriage with the girls, but when the group left for the capital, he quickly got bored and decided to play with Chloe. Now that I've stopped to think about it, what are these horses? Ruby forgot to ask. Oh, they're demonic horses. They live in an isolated area in the west, Eleanor said. Why is this name so scary? Well, they're much stronger and tougher than regular horses, so why not? Ruby didn't know what to say. She just thought the name a little ugly for such a beautiful creature. That's unfair. I tried to ride one of those horses, but I got kicked off. Sasha pouted. If it were so easy, my army wouldn't be special. Eleanor snorted. Then she explained. Riders go through a long period for the horse to get used to their presence. They have to have a brother-sister bond. But what about Darling? Violet asked in an innocent voice, but Eleanor could have sworn she saw a slight smile on Violet's hateful face. She decided to be silent. She had no answer to that question. Victor was just very strange. Kaka. You'll get used to this feeling soon. Scat Hack laughed. She was leaning against the carriage. She looked very relaxed. Sigh. N/O/vel/b//and.c//om. Eleanor just sighed. In another carriage was the group of Pepper, Sienna, Lakis, Maria, and Luna. Yum. Pepper was making strange noises. That looks fun. She looked at Victor with a sharp look. Like Sasha, she also tried to ride a horse, but she was also kicked off by a horse. Just give up. You heard from Eleanor, right? These horses won't let you ride them. Lakis spoke. Never. I want to have fun. Don't be spoiled, Sienna said. But I'm not spoiled. I just want to have fun. And it's unfair that Victor is having fun alone. What about my rights? I also want to ride a horse and feel the wind in my face. Sienna rolled her eyes. Pepper looked back at Victor with a piercing look. Suddenly, a light bulb flashed on top of her head. She seemed to have an idea. Whatever you're thinking, just don't do it. Pepper ignored Sienna's voice, as she backed onto the carriage and jumped towards Victor. Pepper? Lakis and Sienna spoke at the same time. Victor was surprised when he saw a body flying towards him, but he quickly picked up Pepper and placed her in front of him. What are you doing? He patted Pepper's head a little. Pepper's face turned a little red. I want to have fun too, and it's unfair that you're having fun alone. Maria and Luna looked at Pepper. Lady Violet is not going to like this, they said at the same time. Oh. Victor flashes a small smile as he takes Pepper's hands. He opens her hands and makes her hold the horse rope. Enjoyed it. Oh. Pepper looked like a child who was riding a horse with her father. He looks into Chloe's eyes, and, seeing that the horse is upset, he says, "Just hold on for a few minutes." He spoke in a low voice. The horse neighs, nodding. "This bitch, what is she doing?" Violet freaked out. "Pepper." Ruby sighed. "Kaka. Scat Hack just chuckled like he was enjoying himself. "Unfair, I want to try too." Sasha's blue eyes sparkled. Then she jumped towards Victor too. "Even you, Sasha?" Violet couldn't believe what she was seeing. She just thought of something. Those bitches. I missed my chance. Seeing another body flying towards him. With a gesture of impressive dexterity, he rises from his horse and jumps back in a somersault. Then he catches Sasha in midair and puts her behind Pepper. Soon he falls behind Sasha and grabs her waist. Sasha didn't understand what happened. "Fway? I feel something soft on my back," Pepper muttered. They were accompanied on their way to the capital by the personal army of Countess Eleanor Adrastea. The group traveled relatively quickly. A trip that could have taken 2 days of running at a moderate pace was reduced to 1 day, and as a consequence, they arrived just before the match between Victoria Ryder and the Horseman clan leader happened. Of course, if they were running, they would have arrived faster, but a comfortable ride is always the best option. And in a way, Victor had fun riding Chloe. The horse was very fast, and she was very obedient. Honestly, he was actually considering kidnapping Chloe. But when he thought about it, his conscience quickly hit him hard. He tried his best not to take Scat Hack's bad habits. But after living 6 months under the same roof with a woman that has a strong personality like Scat Hack, like it or not, he was influenced a little. After all, they were already similar. Looking at the capital from a distance, Victor was at a loss for words for the first time. "Beautiful, right?" Sasha spoke with a small smile as she looked at Victor's stunned expression. Victor wakes up from his stupor and soon, he displays a small smile as he pats Sasha's head. "It's not as beautiful as you." Sasha flashed a small satisfied smile and leaned her back against Victor's chest. "But indeed, this is a beautiful city," I said as I looked out over the city again. A smile curls my lips involuntarily. Ahead of me, I saw a city that was even darker than horror movie cities. Flying bats and ancient buildings that seemed to have come from early times. Even I could feel that, despite being old, their buildings were incredibly resistant. Despite looking gloomy, the capital was reasonably illuminated by the lights of the houses. In a world where the night never ended, the city had a confused feeling of depression, joy, and especially danger. Some powerful auras made me feel excited and expectant. After training with my mother-in-law, my blood is boiling to experience a decent fight. Although it's fun to train with Scat Hack, I still can't compare myself to her. I know I've gotten stronger, but the question I most want to know is, how much stronger did I get compared to other vampires? How much stronger have I become? I want to know. I want to have fun. I want to find someone strong to test my limits. I don't know why I'm feeling this overwhelming desire in me, but I don't care. I want to fight, and something tells me I will find the answer in this capital. "Hold!" 2 guards covered in armored armor yelled. He was holding a spear somewhat resembling Eleanor's army. "Identify yourself," they shouted in unison. Victor looked at the guard with curious eyes. He could also feel several eyes watching him inside the walls, and each one of these guards gave a different sense of pressure. He could instinctively tell that all these guards were strong. "They are not common guards," Victor whispered with a small smile on his face. His instincts were begging him to fight, but he held back. He knew it wasn't time yet. "Yes, they're not." Sasha observed the guard. "They're the king's personal guard, vampires specifically trained to protect the king and the king's family," Sasha explained. "I see." Victor nodded, and then he concentrated on stroking Sasha's head, and just like that, he could calm his instincts. "Walter, please," Eleanor said. Soon one of Eleanor's armed vampire soldiers rides beside Eleanor's carriage. That soldier removes his helmet, and soon the face of an old man is shown. "Your wish is my command, Countess Eleanor." He spoke respectfully, then walked towards the guard. This level of security at the entrance is not common, Ruby, who was inside the carriage, said. "Oh." Victor looked at the carriage window. Usually these guards are not at the city gate. They are royal guards, and they just protect the king and the king's family. They are mostly in the king's personal residences. Having so many guards at the entrance to the capital is not a good sign, Ruby explained. Kakaka. Don't overthink it, my daughter. The king is just being overprotective of his daughters. Scat chuckled. NOV. L. B / JNN. They are here. Probably so. After all, that man just goes overboard with security when his daughters are around. An overprotective father. He reminds me of someone Victor thought of his teacher. When thinking about his acquaintances, Victor suddenly felt a sense of longing for his family. Are my mom and dad okay? He hasn't talked to his family for 6 months, and he's never been away from his family for so long. When I have time, I'll call them. Pepper, I think it's time you got off that horse, right? We've already arrived in town. You too, Sasha. Violet with a gentle smile on her face. Pepper's body shivered when she heard Violet's voice. But she didn't want to get down now. She had a lot of fun, but she still wanted to play more. Humph. Sasha turned her face and leaned into Victor even more. Veins began to pop in Violet's head when she saw Sasha's attitude. Pepper. Violet's eyes changed to blood red, and her blood pressure seemed to increase. No, I do not want to. Pepper turned away. Stop bullying my sister. Don't be jealous. She's not interested in that sort of thing. You know that. Ruby spoke. Violet didn't want to give up. Don't be angry, Violet. Victor displayed a small smile. Hearing Victor's voice, Violet's eyes changed to violet, and she looked up at him with a pout on her face. But darling dash, Violet was going to say something, but she stopped talking when she heard Victor's voice again. How about this? I'll take you on a date later. Just the two of us. Violet, Ruby, and Sasha's eyes changed to blood red. Not wanting to miss the chance, Violet said, You promise? Yeah, pinky promise. He joked, but his wives knew he was serious. Good. Violet's body started to shake, and a huge smile threatened to escape her face, but she quickly turned her face away and looked out over the landscape. Seeing that Victor was silent and didn't mention the two, Ruby and Sasha looked at Victor with intense eyes. Feeling Ruby and Sasha's gaze boring into his head, he looks at them. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you. He strokes Sasha's head. I'll take Violet first, but I want to have a one-on-one date with each of you. He flashed a loving little smile. Even though they wanted a date, they didn't know how to react when he openly spoke those words. They were happy, but they were also embarrassed. Women are complicated beings. You can come in. The gate behind the guard began to open. The Countess Eleanor's army must remain stationed outside the capital. Walter, deploy the army in my personal mansion outside the capital. That place has enough space. Yes, Countess Eleanor. Walter speaks, and soon he starts giving orders to the knights. Don't make a mess in the capital, or the royal guard would threaten the group. Or what? Scat shows her face through the window and looks at the guard. Then she opens the carriage door and gets out. Looking at the woman who got out of the carriage and seeing her striking features, he immediately recognized the woman. CCC Countess Scat Scarlet. They were getting cold under their armor now. How could they not know this woman? After all, she was the one who trained some of them in the past. Tell me, what are you going to do if I decide to blow up the gate? She had a slight smile on her face. She looked like she was kidding, but the guards knew not to play with this crazy woman. The guard didn't know what to say. Sienna and Lakis, who were seeing this from a distance, said, Mother seems to be a little irritated, Lakis. Indeed. What happened to make her angry? Sienna. Even the king's guards are afraid of you. Just what did you do? Scat. The guards looked at Victor in shock. He just used Scat name so informally? Is he crazy? He will die. I did a lot of things I don't remember anymore. She flashed a small smile. She didn't do anything? The guards were freaking out internally. As expected of you. He flashed a small smile. Just who is this man? The guards knew that in the vampire world, there was only one being who could speak to Scat like that, and that was their king. They didn't know this man. In the past, if someone disrespected Scat, that was reason enough for that vampire to die. Well, isn't the gate open? Let's get going. Victor got off the horse along with Sasha, and he stroked Chloe's mane. The horse neighed happily and a little sadly. Eleanor looked at it with a jealous look. Chloe looked at Pepper with a hateful look. After all, this dairy cow was on top of her now. Her mood has improved, Lakis commented as she looked at her mother, who was entering the capital. Mother. Sienna puts her hand to her face and sighs. After this minor incident happened to the guards at the entrance to the capital, the group soon entered the capital. But without Victor knowing, a rumor ended up circulating among the guards, and soon that rumor began to slowly spread through the city. The rumor was simple. Someone called that red-haired demon informally and survived. The initial content of the rumor was this. But as time went by, and the rumor circulated by word of mouth, it turned out that in the end, the rumor was totally distorted to something like, someone managed to tame that red-haired demon. There were versions of the rumor that said something like, the red-haired devil got a new toy. And in the end, no one knew anymore which was the true version of this rumor. But one thing is certain. Because of this misunderstanding that Victor unknowingly provoked, he increased his reputation a little with the king's guards. The atmosphere of this place is very different from anything I've experienced. I spoke in a low voice. Unlike the territory of Scat-Hack that I didn't explore much, the capital had a very strange climate. The place, despite being well lit, had areas that were totally dark, and although it looked safe, I could feel danger in the air. The place was elegant, and at the same time old-fashioned. I could even see several vampires walking the streets in modern clothes. The capital was a mixture of ancient architecture and inhabitants with modern habits. The capital was a contradiction in terms. It was chaotic, but at the same time it was beautiful. I think this is what happens when vampires create a society. As they are an immortal race, they see no need to change structures, and because of that, there are old structures. But as they need to live in society, they had to modernize and not get stuck in the past. It was strange. The city was very strange. I won't deny that fact, but it was interesting. What are you looking at? Fuck off. I look to the side and see Violet threatening some women. TSK. That's why I don't like to go out. These idiots keep looking at me like I'm a rare animal or something. Lakis complained. I look around and see that several vampires are looking at the group with curious eyes. Still, even though they are watching the girls, the vampires are focusing their attention on Scat-Hack, Eleanor, Violet, Sasha, and Ruby. And surprisingly, I was attracting the attention of female vampires. That's why Violet was so irritated with women. Hey, aren't they? Yes, they are. It looks like they came to see the games too. But who is this man? I could also see that some men were looking with lecherous eyes at the girls. They were trying to hide it because they noticed Scat-Hack in the group. But even though they tried to hide it, I didn't like it. I felt an irritating feeling in my heart. It was as if someone was lusting after something that is mine. My blood cried out for retaliation. I started to clap my hands. When I got their attention, I said, disappointing. When they meet my gaze, they seem to freeze. Is that what vampires are? You can't even be considered noble vampires. You're just a pitiful mistake of a faulty thing. The best way to deal with vampires is to hit their egos. Huh? Who are you, Dash? A slicked-up black-haired vampire spoke up. Stop. I don't want to hear anything from a dog like you. Wait, calling you a dog is an insult to the dog itself. At least dogs are loyal. You're just a pig. I display a small smile. Oh, indeed. I started to walk towards them. My smile grew. I felt my teeth change and get sharper. I started to slowly clap my hands. Then, slowly, my image starts to get distorted, and an overwhelming killing intent starts to leave my body. You are just pigs to be slaughtered by me, Doc. Heh. I heard Scat-Hack's voice. WWH. The vampires began to visibly sweat, and I could also see that some had pissed themselves. Seeing this sight, my sadistic side begged for more. Feeling a hand on my shoulder, I looked at whoever touched me and saw my wife, Ruby, stop. If you make a fuss here, you won't be able to enter the city again, and we won't be able to have our date. Yeah, if it weren't for that, I would have burned those bitches that are looking at you by now. Violet surprisingly supported Ruby. They're right, just forget about it. They're not worth our time, Sasha supported. Surprisingly, all three seemed to have the same opinion on this matter. Tisk, just let him loose. Scat-Hack looked annoyed again. Mother, You shouldn't just say that because you're angry. Pepper tried to say something, but Scat Hack just looked at her daughter when she wanted her daughter to shut up. n/o/vel/b/jen.c//om. Pepper stopped talking and looked up at the sky as she began to whistle. Whistle. What beautiful weather this is, right? Look at those cloudy clouds. She started to stroke Chloe's mane with a pout on her cheek, but Chloe didn't seem to be enjoying it. Hearing my wife's words, I held back my sadistic desires and looked at the vampires, my eyes gleaming a little for a brief moment. Get lost! The vampire men's bodies seem paralyzed for a few seconds, and then they assume an attitude of obedience. Yes, master. They just left the place obediently. I should have done it from the start, but I wouldn't be satisfied like that. The female vampires who were seeing this just stared at Victor once more with an interested look. They thought that he was someone important since he was hanging out with several high-status women. Before Sasha, Ruby, and Violet could say anything, they heard Scat Hack say, "What are you waiting for? Fuck off." The female vampires quickly fled when they felt Scat Hack's pressure. After this small incident finished, the group walked towards Scat Hack's mansion, which was near the arena. On the way to Scat Hack's mansion, Eleanor didn't take her gaze off of Victor. Unlike the other female vampires, she wasn't stupid. She knew something happened when Victor looked at those vampires. After all, arrogant vampires wouldn't call someone random a master out of nowhere. Victor felt Eleanor's gaze, and he knew more or less what she was trying to find out, but he didn't care. It also didn't mean he would voluntarily explain what he'd done. "Eleanor, why are you following us?" Ruby asked. Now that Ruby says that, "West bitch, why are you following us?" "Shoo shoo." Violet spoke. Eleanor ignored Violet and was silent for a few seconds. Then she said, "Originally, I wanted to ask my master a favor." She looked at Scat Hack, who was walking beside her daughters. But she said she wouldn't train anyone else for a long time, so I just decided to follow you guys to watch the game. And after the game is over, I'll go back home. The two girls nodded when they heard Eleanor's motives. Ruby suddenly remembered something. "Luna, you could buy some books on the human world." "By books, do you mean mangas?" Luna exhibited a small smile. Ruby was silent and just looked at Luna. "I want you to buy me something too." Pepper squealed excitedly. "I need some things too," Leica said. Luna was surprised that suddenly the women started asking her for things. "I need some new tech gadgets," Sienna said. "Oh, that's a good idea. Buy me a camera too," Pepper yelled. "W8. It's a lot. How am I going to bring it all?" All women looked at Maria. Maria was surprised that she suddenly became the focus of attention. "Put Maria to work too. She's my maid after all," Sasha said. "Oh, good idea." Pepper laughed. Seeing that she had no option in the matter, Maria just sighed. "I need something too. I'll send my butler to go with you." Eleanor picks up a phone. "Walter, I need you to come back here." Violet suddenly said, "Darling, do you need something?" She looks to the side and suddenly notices something. "Darling?" He disappeared. "Husband?" Sasha looked around. "Don't tell me you got lost?" Pepper somehow thought of a green-haired anime character who kept getting lost in the group. He was probably kidnapped, Lakis deduced. "Impossible. With my mother's current affection, she wouldn't let that happen," Sienna said, but everyone in the group could feel a little jealousy coming from her voice. Scat Hack ignores Sienna's words and says, "If you're looking for Victor, he turned onto a random street a few blocks back. He seemed to be interested in a store." Ruby sighed. She looked around and also noticed that someone was missing. "Where's Yuki?" "That girl? She went with him." "Well, she's his personal maid," Sasha said. "Indeed. It would be weird if she didn't go with him." Lakis agreed. Darl dashed. "Don't freak out yet." Ruby spoke before Violet could say anything. Violet looked shocked at Ruby. "Don't look at me like that. How long have we known each other?" Ruby rolled her eyes. "But Darling is gone. He's just curious about things around him. He looked like a country kid who came to the big city," Sasha said. "Yes." Ruby nodded with Sasha. She looked at Violet and continued, "Trust her husband, okay? Just because he got interested in a store doesn't mean he's going to cheat on us with some random woman. He's not that kind of man." "Indeed." My son-in-law is a faithful man. Scat Hack flashed a provocative smile. The three wives looked neutrally at Scat Hack. What? Nothing. The three spoke at the same time. They just realized that Scat Hack was the real enemy here. Victor sighed. Victor was in a suspicious-looking gun shop. Looks like I split up. Yes, you split from the group, Master. Yuki spoke. Victor was silent. Well, whatever. He could use his connection at any time to meet the group again. Victor starts looking around with his eyes shining with curiosity and sees some red daggers. Hey, old man, what is this dagger? He spoke to a young-looking man who was in a tent. The professional smile almost broke when he heard what Victor said. I'm not old. You're a vampire, right? Yes. How old are you? 1,645. My God. He made a shocked face. You are older than many human countries, as expected of an elder. Veins began to pop in the man's head. I am a young adult. Don't call me old. Yeah. But what is this dagger? Listen to me. Damn it. Victor exhibited an amused smile when he saw the man's reaction, and, although he could feel the man was strong, he didn't care. After all, he could deduce that fights were not allowed in the capital. He looks to one side a little and sees several royal guards patrolling. With those guards circling all over the capital, I doubt any madman will cause any kind of trouble. You didn't answer my question, old man. Victor spoke again. This is a dagger of crystallized blood. He sighed at the end, and it looked like he's given up on something. What is it for? To eat. From your expression of shock at knowing this is something common, I can tell you're a newborn. Although, the man looked at Yuki. If you were accompanied by a Snow Clan maid, then you were someone important. Victor flashed a small smile. You're pretty honest, huh? Living a long time simply makes you become a simple man. I believe so. What is this store anyway? He saw several red-colored weapons, and he even had a huge, completely red axe. Initially, he entered the shop thinking it was a gun shop, but it looks like he was mistaken. This is a custom candy store. Candy? Yes. Isn't that just crystallized blood? Victor was curious. He decided to buy to try. How much is the dagger? It's $300, and we accept debit, credit, and even checks. If you want to use illegal money, we can give you a trustworthy bank account. Dollars? Victor was genuinely confused. He thought vampires used a kind of currency of their own. He was even a little shocked at the price, but he thinks making daggers with crystallized blood shouldn't be easy. And Yuki didn't say anything, so he wasn't being fooled, although it was kind of questionable whether he should trust Yuki in this kind of situation. After all, a rich person's sense of money is quite skewed. In the past, we tried to use our own currency, but the economy failed in less than 500 years so. Because of that, we use human currency, Yuki explained. Oh. Victor was looking at Yuki like she was a walking encyclopedia. Master, haven't you studied the basics of our society? Yes, I studied. But what they taught me were just stories about this world, etc. They didn't teach me common sense. Victor didn't lie. 6 months ago, Pepper, Ruby, and Lakis taught Victor the basics of vampire history, but they didn't teach common sense. And when Victor started training with Scat Hack, he didn't even think about learning. He just concentrated on getting stronger. Sigh. Yuki sighed and asked herself what those women were thinking. I will pay in debit. Victor took out a black card that Scat Hack gave him. Okay, but before proceeding with the purchase, the man looked at the window. Is that child with you? Ah. Victor looked where he was looking and saw a child who looked to be about 5 years old wearing a black goth dress. She had long black hair and violet eyes. Realizing that Victor noticed her presence, the little girl walks elegantly towards the door and enters the establishment. She walks towards Victor. Just when she gets close to Victor, she takes his hand. Father. Victor was speechless. WWH. Yuki didn't know how to react. Victor looked at the young-looking man. Old man, is this your daughter? My kids aren't that cute. The man denied it. Victor looked at the little girl again, and, seeing her appearance, he had to agree that she looked adorable, even by vampire standards. Didn't she just call you Dad? Old man, don't talk nonsense. I still haven't tasted the forbidden pleasure. Cherry Boya? Unexpected. I thought you would be a playboy. What makes you think that? Victor was speechless. Instinct? I felt threatened when you walked into my shop. I thought you were going to steal my wife or something. Victor. The old man. Playboy. Yuki thought of Victor's wives and his relationship with Scat-Hack, and internally, she couldn't help but agree with the old man's words. Father. The little girl squeezed Victor's hand tighter. NOVLB //JNN. Victor looked at the little girl, and then he knelt down and looked at the little girl in her eyes. What's your name? Ophis? He questioned. She nodded her head in agreement. Why are you calling me Father, Ophis? Victor is absolutely sure he hadn't made such a beautiful daughter. Because you are my father? She spoke with a cute face. The old man. Victor. Makes sense? It makes no sense. The old man wanted to scream at Victor. What's your father's name? He asked. Father. She answered. What's your mother's name? He asked again. I do not know. Victor didn't know how to react to the little girl's sad expression. Ugh, is she so hard to talk to because she speaks so few words? He thought to himself. Is there someone responsible for you? He asked. I do not know. She answered. Victor sighed. Well, Ophis, do you know the capital? She nodded. Let's take a walk then. Victor's thought was simple. If he walked around with this girl, her guardians would find her. At least, that was the excuse he thought to himself. He lifts the little girl up and puts her on his shoulder. In the end, you decided to stay with her. I don't know if you're a dumb man or a kind man. Whatever, old man, that's not your problem. And haven't you noticed how difficult she is to talk to? It will take years to find out who is responsible for it. And I still want to explore the capital. Makes sense, just don't get in trouble, boy. Impossible. A pretty little girl finds me out of nowhere, and I decided to stay with her for a while. Of course, that's begging for trouble. So you are aware of that? Yeah. And why are you taking care of her anyway? Well, it's interesting, right? Why not? The old man was speechless. Hey, old man, give me that dagger. Give me the card first. Okay. After buying 2 blood daggers, Victor leaves accompanied by Yuki and Ophis, who was on his shoulder. A few minutes after Victor left, a woman with long black hair entered the store accompanied by several royal guards. Did this little girl come through here? Looking at the image in the woman's hand, the old man broke out in a cold sweat, but with years of experience, he managed to keep his poker face. Who are you, ma'am? Elizabeth Teeps. She showed the old man a badge she always carries with her. The old man's whole body shook when he heard the woman's last name. Realizing he was talking to royalty, he did what every good citizen would do in this situation. Yeah, I just saw her go out with a tall man and a snow clan maid. He denounced Victor to the authorities. Soon he pointed to where Victor left, and he also gave information about Victor's appearance. Good job. Your store will be rewarded. The woman turned and left, accompanied by the knights of the royal guard. Sigh. The old man sighed. He had nothing against Victor, but that's it. He just met the boy, and he wouldn't risk his neck for a stranger. Though the old man had a feeling Victor wouldn't mind. Master, I think you're overreacting, Yuki commented, holding back the growing urge to sigh that was building in her heart. But she's so cute. Victor spoke. The girl was wearing a black bunny hat that had red eyes. She was holding several crystallized blood candies. Yuki looked at Ophis, and when she saw the slight smile on the girl's face stoic, she realized she was enjoying what Victor was doing. I better not tell this to the master's wives. They're going to freak out, Yuki thought. Somehow Victor felt like a father who should spoil his daughter. At first, he just walked around with Ophis sitting on his shoulder, but every now and then, he saw that she was interested in something, but she didn't say anything. And instinctively, Victor took action and bought her several things. Victor takes Ophis off his shoulder and lifts her like a child. Tell me, do you hate this? Ophis looked into Victor's red eyes. Then she said, I don't hate it, father. See? Victor chuckled and soon puts her on his shoulder again. Yuki sighed. Although personally, she found it cute how Victor spoiled a child looking like an overprotective parent. But the problem is that the child is not his. It's a random kid he found in a random place. This is kidnapping. She can somehow hear the police siren km away. Ophis, if you find anything interesting, just point your finger, okay? She spoke as she licked the crystallized candy. Victor even tried to eat these sweets, but he didn't like them, and he even almost threw up. It tasted awful for him, so it was quite impressive to see Ophis and Yuki eating it like it was delicious. Yes, Yuki ate the candy too, despite being complaining a few minutes ago. The maid had completely forgotten about her work. She only remembered when she saw that Victor was overdoing his shopping. The group started walking around the city again. The city is busier than usual, Yuki commented. Is it because of the game? Yeah, as it's a public game, the authorities took the opportunity to make a big event. After all, if Lady Victoria wins, she will become a new Count Vampire, and that will mark a new record in vampire history. Never in history has it happened that the title of Count passed to another owner in such a short period of time. I see. Ophis points to a children's clothing store. Oh, are you interested in clothes? Cute. Let's go then. When Victor entered the store along with Ophis and Yuki, someone was watching him from a distance. What are we supposed to do, princess? A young-looking knight asked. He looked quite impatient. The woman shows a small smile on her face. You won't do anything. Just wait outside the store. But Princess ... The knight was about to protest, but with just one look from the woman, he was silent. Wait here. I won't repeat myself again, okay? She smiled gently at the knights. Yes. They quickly nodded in agreement. The woman nods, satisfied, and then she walks towards the store. Upon entering the store, Ophis started pointing her finger at various cute clothes. Victor called an attendant, and when the attendant arrived, he asked, Do you have a locker room here? Yes, my lord. The locker room is in that direction. Follow me. My lord. Victor thought about the strange way the woman called him, but he thought the woman called him that because he was accompanied by Yuki. After all, her features screamed that she was from Clan Snow. Victor took several clothes that Ophis pointed out and gave to Yuki. I can't go into the locker room with a kid I barely know, right? That would be inappropriate. Unexpected. I thought my master didn't have common sense. She spoke with a gentle smile, but her words weren't kind. Just help Ophis change her clothes. Victor spoke as he took Ophis off his shoulders and set her down. Yes, master. Yuki looks at Ophis and says, Come on, Lady Ophis. I will help you change your clothes. Ophis didn't say anything. She just held a part of Victor's pants, as if she didn't want to be separated from him. Victor displays a gentle smile when he sees this. He kneels and says, Coming with you in that locker room would definitely be inappropriate. Just listen to Yuki, okay? I'll wait outside. He stroked her head. When she felt Victor's caresses, for a few seconds, Ophis' eyes sparkled intensely. She seemed to have enjoyed it a lot. Soon, she closed her eyes as if enjoying herself. Victor stopped stroking Ophis' head. Go. I will wait. Father. She agreed. Victor felt his heart being caressed by the cuteness of Ophis now. Soon Yuki and Ophis entered the locker room. Taking this chance, the attendant approached Victor. Lord, are you interested in buying this? Victor looks at the object in the woman's hand. A camera? Yeah, and it's not just any camera. It's a high-definition camera that was made specifically for taking high-resolution photos, and with which technology, the photo is printed on the spot. Interesting. Victor was interested, but he didn't see the need to buy a camera right now. But I don't dash. Victor was going to refuse, but he stopped talking when Yuki walked out of the locker room with Ophis. What's good? Ophis asked. Victor didn't know how to answer. Ophis' black dress was swapped for a black bunny coat and a pretty black skirt. She looked incredibly adorable. Victor was speechless, and for the first time, he realized why cuteness is justice. Give me that shit. He took the camera from the woman's hand and started taking pictures of Ophis. Thanks for the purchase. The attendant laughed and walked away. Okay, so cute. Victor was freaking out while taking several pictures of Ophis in different outfits. All the outfits were made for kids, and none of the outfits Ophis wore were inappropriate. Master, Yuki was actually considering calling the royal guards. But she still hasn't done that because she realized that Victor had no malicious intent behind his actions. He just looked like he was having fun. Yuki looks at Ophis and sees a small smile on the child. She seems to be enjoying it too. Feeling a gaze pierce his back, Victor stopped taking pictures and looked at Yuki. Don't look at me like you're looking at a criminal. I just realized I like cute things. Victor was definitely not abnormal. He liked thighs, breasts, a grown woman. The cuteness was meant to be appreciated. Remembering the jokes he played with his wives when they were alone, Victor nodded in satisfaction. Adult women are better. Feeling someone pulling the fabric of his pants, he looked down. Ophis. The little girl seemed to be hiding behind him. He looked over to where Ophis was looking and saw a woman with long black hair with shades of violet eyes, and pale skin common to vampires. She had a nice womanly figure. She was thin and short for Victor's current height, about 172 centimeters. But despite being thin, she had everything in the right places: B-cup breasts and a perky ass. She was wearing a short black dress that looked to be quite simple, but at the same time, very elegant. She had a black choker around her neck, and on that choker held a small black jewel. She definitely has the appearance of a cool woman. Oh, she finally decided to show herself. Victor had already noticed her for some time, and he just didn't do anything because he thought she had no bad intentions. He shifted his attention and looked towards the wall. Then his world changed to crimson red. They're still waiting. N/O/vel/b//c/.c/.om. Victor's smile grew. He had already deduced the woman's identity. But the question was, what is her relationship with Ophis? Maybe her sister? Victor felt it was quite possible that this was correct. But one thing was for sure. He was definitely comparing his strengths to the woman in front of him. Although she is hiding her power, he could deduce that because she appeared to be relatively weak. But as that man's daughter, she shouldn't be weak, right? Hello. She waved a hand as she approached. Victor flashed a small smile. You finally revealed yourself. I was starting to wonder how long it would take you. He got right down to business. She was a little surprised that Victor didn't try to extend the conversation, so she displayed a small, satisfied smile. She liked his attitude of not wasting time with useless conversation. Well, I didn't think the time was right to go in. She looked at Ophis and the clothes Ophis was wearing. Yuki approaches Victor and stands behind him. She had noticed the strange atmosphere between the two. Admit it. You just wanted to see more, right? Indeed, my sister is a bit quiet, so it's rare to see her exhibiting so many emotions. Ophis' grip tightened on Victor's leg. Victor stroked Ophis's head. You say sister, but she doesn't seem comfortable with you. Complicated family. She laughed. I can imagine. Victor flashed a smile that showed his sharp teeth. As he couldn't move properly with Ophis holding his leg, he picked up the little girl and placed her on his shoulder. The woman's eyes sparkled for a few seconds when she saw that Ophis easily accepted being touched. Is he not feeling anything? Interesting. Like Ophis' sister, she knew of the little girl's special condition, and seeing a person touching her sister directly and not being influenced made her quite curious. We didn't introduce ourselves, huh? My name is Victor Walker. Walker. She has never heard of this family of vampires. Elizabeth Teeps, the daughter of the king. Oh, cool. Victor didn't react much. Elizabeth didn't know how to react. She expected a reaction similar to the one from the owner of the store. Is she your sister? He asked Ophis directly. Sister. Ophis nodded in agreement. Do you like her? He asked. Sister is a good person, father. Father. Elizabeth stuttered a lot, and her noble appearance of hers went away as if it never existed. Scathacker's mansion in the capital that was close to the arena. Darling is taking a while. I'm having a bad feeling about this. Violet was impatient. It's only been 2 hours, Violet. Take it easy. Ruby spoke. I'll go look for him. I can get to him easily with my speed. Sasha was feeling the same feeling as Violet. Ruby holds Sasha's hand. He'll be back in an hour, and if he's too late, we can go out and look for him. After all, we can easily find him. She was also worried, but she wanted Victor to also have some time alone, especially considering he spent 6 months training without resting. Violet is understandable, but even Sasha and Ruby? I never expected to see them make these expressions. I think marriage changes people. Huh. Eleanor spoke. She was sitting next to Sienna, Lakis, and Pepper. Currently, there were only Violet, Ruby, Sasha, Lakis, Pepper, Sienna, Eleanor, and Chloe in the mansion. Scat-Hack had gone off somewhere. She had said she was going to visit an old friend. Maria and Luna are in the human world. Things have changed since that man moved here. Sienna sighed. You seem to dislike him? At first, I had a certain prejudice towards him, but seeing him becoming strong in such a short time, and seeing him receiving my mother's affection, her voice began to darken every second she spoke. Jealousy, huh? Eleanor could understand Sienna a little. After all, Victor seemed quite close to Scat-Hack, which is something she has never been able to do, even though she is Scat-Hack's disciple. Wrong. I'm not jealous of him. My opinion of him is neutral. Eleanor rolled her eyes. She obviously didn't believe it. And you, Lakis? I like Victor. He's a fun guy, she said. Then she continued, sometimes when I talk to him, I feel like I'm talking to my mother. They are very similar in certain aspects. I think they match. Why are you talking like he's going to become your father? Eleanor was speechless. Oh. Lakis didn't realize what she said. Victor is a lot like my mother, but he's kinder than she is. Humph. My mother's kindness is demonstrated through actions. Sienna snorted. I know, but I also miss hearing an I love you or I was worried. She's not a woman who says these things. Pepper commented a little sadly. She was the one who missed it the most. She was quite emotional about family issues. Sienna and Lakis didn't say anything, but they internally agreed with Pepper's words. The three foster sisters had the same feelings as Ruby towards their mother. They wanted to be closer to Scat-Hack, but they didn't know how to go about it. And because of that, they were also a little jealous of Victor for being able to get close to Scat-Hack so quickly. Victor was walking through the streets of the capital accompanied by Yuki, who was on his left side, who had several bags in her hands. These were the purchases Victor made for Ophis. Talking about Ophis, the little princess was sitting on his right shoulder and gently holding his neck as if she was afraid of falling. Ophis was back in her goth dress. She bought several outfits, but she still decided to keep her dress. However, she had said she would wear the dresses at home. On Victor's right side was a very elegant and dazzling-looking woman, and all the little gestures she made were charged with a lot of nobility and elegance. Kaka, they sure are tense. Victor chuckled as he looked at the group of royal guards. He waved softly at them, and he could see that some were annoyed to see him making the gesture. Well, that's their job. Even though they're overreacting, Elizabeth spoke in an elegant voice. After Victor and Elizabeth's brief encounter at the clothing store, Victor somehow gained new company on his visit to the capital. The princess seemed quite interested in accompanying him, and, as he saw that Ophis wasn't afraid of her, he didn't mind having this princess accompany him. Apparently, Ophis just didn't want to go home. According to Elizabeth, Ophis lives in a very isolated location, and she has little contact with other people, so, because of that, she speaks very few words. Unlike before, when he was enjoying the capital in a carefree way, this time, he was more aware of his surroundings. The group started visiting various stores while talking about random things. If anyone saw it from the outside, they would think the group looked like a group of friends enjoying the local festivities. In a suspicious-looking store. What is that? He pointed to an object that looked like a black banana. This is animal food. Oh! In some isolated regions of the East, there is a group of monkeys that can be domesticated, and this is their food, Elizabeth explained. Victor's eyes sparkled with interest. Why is everything here the darkest color? Evolution, she said. Victor immediately understood what she meant. Oh, as this is a world where there is no sunlight, they evolved differently. Yes, because of this peculiarity, there are many strange animals. N/O/vel/B/C//OM. Interesting. I hope to see these animals in the future. Victor soon turned and started walking again in search of something else that piqued his curiosity. Elizabeth looked at Victor's back for a moment. She seemed to be thinking deeply about something. Then, seeing Victor playing with Ophis, who pointed towards a strange item, the princess exhibited a small smile on her face and soon followed the two. One thing Victor noticed was that he was getting more attention now. It turned out that walking around with an elegant princess caused that kind of effect, and the royal guards who weren't that far behind the group didn't help either. This kind of situation was a dish full of curiosity for vampires who were always bored. Victor didn't mind the looks this time. After all, they weren't looking at his wife. He just kept his senses alert since he expected something to happen, at any moment. And he wasn't wrong. Something actually happened, but it wasn't with him. "Did you touch me? You inferior!" A grown man yelled. "Who? The street is public. And you were the one who leaned against me. Look at my clothes. They're dirty." The other man, who looked like a teenager, yelled as he pointed at his shirt, which had a small spot of dirt. "Fuck your outfit. I want compensation. You hurt me." "Fuck you." The younger man held up his middle finger. Are they idiots? Victor looked at a group of vampires who were arguing in the middle of town. "Idiots?" Ophis repeated what Victor said. She looked like she was learning a new word. "This happens more often than you think," Elizabeth spoke. "Ego the size of the world," Victor said. "Indeed," Elizabeth agreed. "I wonder how I would feel if I stepped on these fragile egos. What expressions would they make?" Victor muttered under his breath with a neutral expression that threatened to break into a smile at any moment. With vampire senses heightened, the women heard what Victor said, but they decided not to comment on it. Victor looked at the two men and saw that they immediately fled when the royal guard approached them. "Boring. Let's keep walking." He started walking again. The group walked through several streets and stores. They ended up entering a street that had no vampire in sight. Victor thought this would be a shortcut to the other street, but it ended up being a dead end. "Let's go back." He was going to turn around, but suddenly Elizabeth said, "Unfortunately." He looked at the princess. "I need to go home, and so do you, Ophis." Ophis quickly gripped Victor's neck tighter. She looked at her sister with an expression that said she didn't want to go. Ophis dash. Elizabeth tried to say something, but she was interrupted by Ophis. "I don't want..." "Idiot." Veins began to pop in Elizabeth's head. "PFF. Cough." "What?" A laugh almost escaped from Victor, but he quickly controlled his expression. "This is your fault." She has never spoken those words before. I'm innocent. Believe me, I never lie. Look at my smile. Is this a liar's smile?" Victor smiled with a smile that showed all of his sharp teeth. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. "Ophis, we have to go. You don't want to upset our maid, right?" Ophis pouted cutely. Ophis looks at Victor and says, "Give me..." "What?" "Hand." "Okay." He saw no reason to refuse. Victor reaches his hand toward Ophis, and soon she does something that leaves Elizabeth gaping. "Bite." Ophis bites Victor's hand and drinks his blood. "Ophis." Victor looks at her with a curious look. He waits patiently, and in less than a few seconds, Ophis stops biting Victor. "Yummy." Ophis licked her lips. "What did you do?" he asked. Mark. Victor looked at his hand in curiosity, but he saw no difference, and the wound Ophis had made has already healed. "Yes." She nodded and jumped off Victor's shoulder. As she falls to the ground, Ophis' appearance begins to distort. She looks at Elizabeth. Returning. Before Elizabeth could catch Ophis, the little girl disappeared, and all everyone could see was just a dark trail. She ran away again. She stomped to the ground in frustration. Victor analyzed the situation. He could feel that the girl didn't run somewhere. She just disappeared from existence. He couldn't even feel her presence anymore. Some kind of concealment technique? He tried to deduce what he just saw. Elizabeth looks at Victor, and her eyes begin to glow blood red. Then she speaks in an ordering tone. "Keep what you saw a secret." Victor looks at Elizabeth, then starts to laugh. Kaka. "I will keep the secret, don't worry." He walks towards Yuki, takes the things he bought for Ophis, and quickly gives the items to Elizabeth. Elizabeth was surprised by several things now, but unconsciously she held the bags. "I also need to leave now. Be careful where you walk, Princess. He picks up Yuki like a princess. "Master, close your mouth, or you'll bite your tongue." Not expecting Yuki to prepare, Victor takes a step in a random direction, then disappears. Elizabeth was surprised again by this display of speed. "Fast." "Princess." The royal guards approached when they realized the princess was alone. "Who is that man?" she asked aloud. "My charm didn't work." He didn't seem affected by Ophis' condition either. "And my sister called him father," she muttered. "Princess?" The guards called her again, but Elizabeth didn't mind. "I forgot to ask him for personal information." Wrong. She shook her head. Actually, he deflected the questions on purpose. Elizabeth remembers that when she asked personal questions, Victor pretended to be interested in something and didn't answer her question. Elizabeth started to think with a frown on her face, but soon she wore a smile on her face. Whatever. I can get this information easily. After all, nothing escapes the eyes of the king's shadows. Elizabeth hands the purchases to the guards. Let's go back. My sister should be home now. On top of a tall building, Victor was standing on the highest part of the structure. Victor was watching all this from several miles away. He couldn't hear it from so far away, but he could see from that distance because of his special eyes. She'll probably be interested in me and send someone to investigate me. Victor was thinking of talking to Scat. She seemed to know a lot about the king's family. Some kind of concealment technique or a power I don't know about. This world sure is interesting. Victor had a huge smile on his face. Master, don't drop me. Yuki looked down with a bit of fear. Kakaka, even being a vampire, are you afraid of heights? This has nothing to do with being a vampire or not. Seeing Yuki's expression, Victor felt an itch in his heart, and it was a feeling as if someone had said tease her. And that's precisely what he did. Don't scream, or you'll bite your tongue. Ah! Victor takes a step in the air, and soon gravity begins to do its work. Yuki quickly hugged Victor's neck when she realized he was falling at high speed, and she did as he asked. She didn't scream, but she wanted to scream now. Good. He nodded in satisfaction. Victor does a somersault in the air and kicks the building's wall, and soon he disappears from view. His control was so perfect that he didn't destroy anything and didn't make any noise when he made all these extravagant moves. Using the connection to his wives as a guide, Victor managed to find Scat mansion. Hey girls, I came back. Before Victor could finish his sentence, a violet-shaped rocket attacked him. Darling, darling, darling. Violet stops snuggling and smells Victor's clothes. A woman. His eyes darkened, but soon she wore a confused expression. Wrong? Is that a little girl? Violet pulls away from Victor and looks at him. Did you get your hands on a little girl? Kaka. Victor laughs. Then he looks at Violet and says, when I was visiting the capital, a strange little girl approached me. He started to explain to her his meeting with Ophis and Elizabeth. In the middle of the explanation, Ruby and Sasha also appeared, accompanied by Lakis and Pepper. Yuki, are you okay? Pepper asked, a little worried. Do I look okay? Yuki commented with a tired face. Her elegant appearance was totally worn out, and even her hair was messed up. Ugh. Yuki put her hand over her mouth. She felt like throwing up. I think you should take a shower. I'm still working. Before she could finish speaking, she felt someone patting her head. You're off your job today. Go rest. Victor chuckled, then went back to explaining what happened to his wives. Yuki exhibited a small smile. She nodded her head and soon entered the mansion. In a room at Scat mansion, Victor was sitting on the couch. Violet was on his left, Sasha and Ruby were on his right. Darling, how can you get in so much trouble when you're alone? Ruby asked in disbelief. Did he just go to a random shop and suddenly meet the king's two youngest daughters? Bullshit. If Ruby didn't know Victor's personality and trusted her husband, she definitely wouldn't believe this story. In my defense, I was walking around the capital having fun. I didn't look for trouble, and it was Ophis who approached me and started calling me fathered. But you could avoid that by turning down Ophis's request, right? You just didn't do it because you found it interesting. Victor couldn't deny Sasha's words. See? He's a lot like my mom. Pepper laughed as she spoke to Eleanor. Sure. Eleanor put her hand over her mouth in a silent gesture. She looked like she was about to watch a very interesting scene. Pepper pouted cutely. Letting my mother take care of you for 6 months was a big mistake. You ended up acquiring her quirks of looking for problems. Ruby commented. Kaka. No need to be so upset. I know what I'm doing, and I do what I do on purpose. Husband, you don't know. They are dash. Victor interrupted. They're from the king's family, and they're definitely going to investigate me, and they're going to find out about our relationship, right? And that can cause problems because some of the children or relatives of the king will not like this situation. They will think that the 3 families have become allies. He commented with a smile on his face. And some of those relatives are definitely going to come looking for trouble. Sasha was silent. Sasha, my beloved wife, I'm not stupid. He patted Sasha's head. Then why dash dot? Violet, who was silent, was going to ask why he did it even though he knew the consequences. But Victor interrupted her. I did it because I wanted to. She was silent. I do what I want, whenever I want, and wherever I want. I won't limit myself because I'm afraid that X or Y person will be upset with my actions. And I'm not ashamed of our relationship either. I love you girls, and this is definitely not wrong. Violet, Sasha, and Ruby's cheeks turned a little red at the sudden confession. I will live my life however I want, and if someone doesn't like it, they are most welcome to knock on my door. I will rip their guts out and hang it on the gate as a warning. He spoke with a smile that showed all his sharp teeth. But what if you get it wrong? I mean, what if you make a wrong decision? Eleanor asked. If I make a mistake, I make a mistake. I'll just have to live with the consequences of my mistake. I'm not a perfect being who never makes mistakes, and I also don't want to live by planning every step I take. That isn't living. That's just a way of mentally torturing yourself. Eleanor was silent. She seemed to be thinking of something. And if I get it wrong, he showed a gentle smile. I also have my wives to advise me and say something like, Victor, you idiot, you made a mistake. I'm not alone. My wives are my greatest allies. Sasha, Violet, and Ruby showed a small smile on their faces. They were so happy that Victor thought so deeply about them. Tell me, my wives, was the decision I made today a mistake? He asked, still smiling. If you look at the whole situation coldly, you didn't make a mistake because it looks like you've earned the affection of the king's youngest daughter. Ruby commented. She looked like she was planning to do something. I don't know, and I don't care about politics either. I just don't like other women getting close to you. Violet spoke as honestly as ever. I think contacting the king's daughter now was a rash decision. Although I understand you didn't know that Ophis was the king's daughter. Sasha commented. See? He smiled and looked at Eleanor. My wives have different opinions from each other, and with those opinions, they can help me a lot. But in the end, I'll still do what I want, just as my wives will do what they want. And if any of us make a mistake, we just have to help each other together as a family. Violet, Ruby, and Sasha felt their hearts were quite sweet now, and they even had a goofy smile on their faces. My beloved mother always told me when I was a teenager that making mistakes is normal. Every human makes mistakes, but to keep making the same mistake is just insanity. You must learn from the mistake so that in the future you don't repeat the same mistake. We must always seek to improve. Although I am no longer human, that concept still applies to me and to everyone in this room. He always took his mom's lessons seriously since his dad just taught him not to be a coward, and he thanks his dad for teaching him that since he was little. Seeing the faces of the women in the room, he said, I think I said too much, kaka. This turned out to be a moral lesson. Ignore what I said, okay? Those are just my honest thoughts. It's okay. I could learn something from this conversation. Eleanor seems to have understood something. Pepper, Lakis, and Sienna also nodded in agreement with Eleanor's words. Omo! He nodded in satisfaction. Suddenly, he felt the presence of someone around the mansion, and Victor exhibited a smile of a predator. This is something Scat Hack always told me while I was training with her. Victor, you must not limit yourself. Live however you want, but you must know the consequences of your choices. That's something my mom would say. Sienna commented. Everyone in the room agreed with Sienna's words. You know what? I agree with Scat Hack. Everyone in the room rolled their eyes. For them, this was no longer a novelty. Kaka. Scat Hack's laugh echoed throughout the mansion. Oh no, Pepper said. He definitely did it on purpose. Lakis sighed. Well said, stupid disciple. Scat Hack appears behind Victor. She leans behind the couch and looks down towards Victor's face. Victor lifts his face and looks into Scat Hack's green eyes. She holds Victor's face and displays a distorted smile. Why live limiting yourself? Why live by the rules of others? Why live always planning the future? That is not life. Just do what you want. So what if you make a mistake? Just don't make the same mistake in the future. You should just move on and never give up on the path you've chosen. That's the way of life I live. Living this way is a lot more fun, right? NOVLB \\JNN. Victor's teeth sharpened, his smile grew, and his red eyes glowed. Indeed, indeed, it's a lot more fun to live like this. PFFF. Kaka kaka. Scat Hack laughed madly. It was like she found something hilarious. Kaka kaka. Victor started laughing along. Violet, Sasha, and Ruby didn't know how to react to their words. But one thing they were sure of, it was a mistake to let Victor stay with Scat Hack for 6 months. Just what has he become? By teaching Victor, Scat Hack basically created a version of her in male form. They could handle one Scat Hack, but two. Two is impossible. Now I understand why my mother reacts so much to Victor. Sienna commented in a low voice. Lakis, Pepper, and Eleanor looked at Sienna. They're the same? But then she corrected her words. I mean, they're not exactly the same, because that's impossible. After all, no one is the exact same as anyone. What I mean is that the starting point of the thoughts that dictate their actions are the same. I think that's why my mother reacts so much to Victor. She found someone who is similar to her. Hearing what Sienna said, the women looked at Scat Hack, who had stopped laughing and was sitting next to Victor. You may be correct, sister, Lakis commented. Then she added, but Victor is still not as crazy as my mother. He has not experienced tragedies or fought wars. He is very green. Yes, but the seed is there, and that similar way of thinking has been there from the beginning. He just has to experience it, and when he experiences it, he will turn into something terrifying. Lakis was silent, but inwardly she agreed with Sienna's words. War? Huh. Eleanor seemed to be thinking of something. She looked at Victor, and for a moment, her eyes flickered with interest. A shadow appeared in the middle of the room at Scat Hack's mansion. Then a maid with oriental features emerged from the shadows. Oh, Kagaya. You came back. Kagaya heard Sienna's voice. Then she looked at the woman. Yes. Where is my master? For some reason, Kagaya felt a pleasant itch in her heart when she said, my master. Victor? Currently, he is on the 2nd floor in a room that has been assigned to him and his wives. If you follow the stairs, you can easily find him. Thanks. Kagaya made a simple gesture of thanks, then walked towards the stairs. On the way to the stairs, she saw someone's room with the door open, and as a responsible maid, she would close the door to give more privacy to the individuals inside the room. When she touches the doorknob to close the door, she hears Pepper and Ruby's voice. Pepper, is this a new anime? Oh, it's a release from last season. I don't think you've seen it, sister. A lot of things happened, and I had to train for 6 months. I missed 2 whole seasons. Omo, don't worry. As a responsible big sister, I recorded all the animes. Oh, good job, sister. But what is this, Omo? Victor says that a lot when he's happy or relaxed. I thought it was cool, so I copied it. I remember that Anna, Victor's mother, talks about that a lot too. But you've been watching my husband a lot. F-way? What is that scary look? I did nothing. Nothing. Let's just watch anime. Ruby, don't become like Violet, please. Ruby was silent. Well, that was interesting. Kagaya was pleased, but realizing what she had done, she quickly shook her head several times and closed the door. How rude. I must not eavesdrop on others' conversations. She thought she was being a very bad maid now. Going up the stairs, Kagaya reached the 2nd floor, and again, she found another room with the door open, and like a competent maid, she had to close the bedroom door. As she approached the room, she heard the voices of Eleanor, Lakis, Sasha, and Violet. I don't understand how this works. Sasha. What? Eleanor. That sword. It's massive and heavy. I prefer something lighter like daggers. Sasha. That's because your fighting style is more focused on speed. Violet. Indeed. My fighting style is more focused on strength, and because of that, heavy weapons are better for me. But now that I stop to think, what is Victor's fighting style? Eleanor. We don't know, but the way he easily used his sword. Is he a force user? But he's pretty fast too. Sasha. I wonder if he chose Great Sword as his starting weapon to train with my master. Eleanor. The only sword influences in Darling's life were the movies of a barbarian he watched with his father, so I think so. He must have chosen greatsword as his first training weapon. Violet. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Just sigh. Sasha sighed, then continued. Just how long have you been watching my husband? A long time indeed. How can I say, would Countess Agnes be proud? After all, her daughter is just like her. Eleanor commented in a sarcastic tone. Hey, West bitch, don't bring my mother into the conversation. Deciding enough was enough. Kaguya closed the door. As expected, Stalker's blood is strong in this family. Kaguya nodded and then started walking towards Victor's room. How did she know it was Victor's room? Well, the name Victor's room was written on the door. Looks like someone did it on purpose. After all, he's the only man in this mansion. Touching Victor's doorknob, she heard Victor and Scathacka's voice. Ka. Did you let that little girl drink your blood? Violet better not find this out. She's going to freak out, but she already knows. I had a hard time making her calmer. Ka. Stopping to think, I remember your daughter said that vampires only drink blood from other vampires only if they are from the family or someone very close as a lover. Indeed, I totally forgot about that. Well, don't worry too much, she just drank a few drops of your blood, so it shouldn't be a big problem. But I think she'll go without food for a while. Considering all the blood she eats will have a disgusting taste to her. I see. I hope she's okay. You seem to like the princesses. Ophis? Yes, she's a good girl. Elizabeth? I don't know. My opinion of her is neutral. Not bad, I think. But to think you'd find the fourth flower of the vampire world with just a casual stroll through the capital. Ka. Flower? Who? Elizabeth? Ophis? Don't make that stupid face. Haven't you noticed her unearthly beauty despite being 5 years old? That's unnatural even for vampires. That's why she's so protected. Oh, I remember she completely disappeared from my senses. Was that some concealment technique? Victor seemed to change the subject. Ka. You're wrong, stupid disciple. That is not a technique. That is her power. She was born with the ability to teleport. Interesting. I thought the king's family would follow the same example as the noble vampire family. So, for example, you can control ice and your descendants will also inherit your powers. You are right and wrong at the same time. The king's family is special. You will find out more in the future. n/o/vel/b/c/c/om. Why so much mystery? Ka. It's more fun this way. And it's not like this information could help you with anything, because even I don't know all the powers of the king's children. That man made sure to hide that secret completely. I understand. A moment of silence fell in the room. Then, sensing an opportunity to step inside, Kaguya turned the doorknob but stopped when she heard Victor's voice. So, how's your bloodlust? It's manageable. It's been years since my head felt light like a feather, although I'm already starting to feel the effects of bloodlust again. Victor, who was sitting at his bedroom window, looked into Scathacka's eyes. Seeing her eyes constantly changing color and seeing the frown on her face, he realized she wasn't completely honest. She was already thirsty, but just didn't say anything. Come here. Slowly, he unbuttoned his suit a bit and showed Scathack his neck. Scathack, who was sitting in an armchair away from Victor, looked at this scene, bathing in the moonlight as he sat elegantly at the window. Victor's current appearance seemed quite irresistible to her, especially when she looked into those crimson-red eyes that, for some reason since the Colosseum incident, never changed to sapphire blue again. Scathack gets up from her chair and walks elegantly towards Victor. Coming close to him, she spoke in a low voice. Do you know what you're offering me? She lightly stroked his neck, and slowly her eyes changed to blood red. Victor displayed a small smile that showed his sharp teeth. Yeah, as you said earlier, vampires only offer their blood to other really close vampires or family members, right? You're my mother-in-law, you're my family, and I can't let you walk around with constant destructive impulses. Humph, I put up with this easily for 21 years. Don't treat me like a delicate woman. I am not. I just don't want to see you in that state again. He lightly stroked her face. "And I know damn well how strong you are." Scat Hack leans her voluptuous body against Victor. She wraps her arms around his neck and then starts sniffing his neck. Glad you understand." She spoke in a low voice. She extended her tongue and start licking his neck. Victor lightly grips Scat Hack's waist and does his best to ignore the feeling of temptation that is overflowing from this woman's body. But this proved to be an arduous task. Scat Hack was very similar to Ruby, which was a weak point for Victor. He kept repeating like a mantra in his head, "She's my mother-in-law. She's my mother-in-law. She is my mother-in-law." He didn't want to betray his wives, and what he was doing now was just helping Scat Hack control her bloodlust. And that was also a form of thanks for helping him out of that deplorable state he was in the Colosseum. If it wasn't for her having helped him, he wouldn't know what he would become today. Scat Hack's teeth began to sharpen as she bit into Victor's neck. Ugh, Victor held back the moan. Feeling his blood being sucked, his eyes began to glow blood red. Looking at Scat Hack's delicate collarbone, his instincts were begging him to bite. And that's what he did. He hugged Scat Hack tighter and bit her neck. Scat Hack tightened her grip on Victor's neck, and unconsciously, she was regulating her strength so as not to break his neck. Victor's bedroom door opened a little, and then Kagaya's snooping eye appeared. That was unexpected. I don't know what happened in those 6 months, but they got so close for my master to casually give his blood. Kagaya thought in surprise. Kagaya was thinking about several things now, and the main ones were how their relationship had become so close in such a short time, but she had a doubt that remained from the beginning. Scat Hack is a 2,000-year-old vampire. She must have already realized that I'm here. And Victor is a vampire who was trained by her, so he also knows I'm here. Now, why do they want me to see this? Like a hard-working maid, her mind began to work on an answer, and soon she understood something. Oh, as Victor's personal maid, I must know about this. She thought that was it. After all, a maid sometimes hides the darkest secrets of their masters. Despite being a hard-working maid, she could never imagine that Victor and Scat Hack just didn't mind someone in the family watching them both. It's not like they were trying to keep secrets either. Victor stopped drinking Scat Hack's blood when he felt satisfied, and he licked her collarbone a little to clean up the spilled blood. Then, seeing that the woman was still drinking his blood, his eyes sparkled with a mischievous glint. Slowly, his hand approaches Scat Hack's head and begins stroking the woman's head. Scat Hack's body visibly trembled as Victor began to stroke her head, but she didn't care. She didn't want to stop drinking his delicious blood because of it. Seeing that he was successful, he exhibited the smile of someone who has gotten what he wants. A few minutes passed, and Scat Hack was still drinking his blood. It seemed that the thirst of an ancient vampire was insatiable. But Victor definitely didn't care, so he looked at the full moon of Nightingale's world. A beautiful night indeed. As a creature of the night, he felt much more comfortable with the night. Every time he looked at the moon, he felt a tingle in his stomach. It was the same feeling he felt when he arrived at his mother's house. It was a feeling of welcome, a feeling that said, "You are home now." A pleasant feeling. Scat Hack stopped drinking Victor's blood. She was finally satisfied, so she started licking his neck like she didn't want to waste anything. "Your blood is irresistible as always, she spoke as she licked his neck. Victor looks at Scat Hack, and, seeing the seductive smile on her face, he displays his own smile. "Are you satisfied? How long are you going to keep doing this?" She didn't answer his question, and instead, she asked another question. "I'm not a little girl." "Kakaka." Victor chuckled playfully. "Indeed, you're not a little girl. But you don't seem to dislike it, right?" Scat Hack lowered her face and used her right to remain silent. Victor stops stroking the woman's head, brings his hand closer to Scat Hack's chin, and lifts her face a little higher, looking into his mother-in-law's green eyes. "Your eyes are back to normal. Are you satisfied now?" He asked the same question. Looking into Victor's crimson-red eyes, Scat Hack felt a strange feeling in her heart. It was a very sweet feeling, a pleasant warmth, and it brought a spiritual peace to her. "Yeah," she flashed a seductive smile. "I'm satisfied." Then, slowly, she starts to walk away from Victor. For now, without her even being aware of it, she was slowly creating a desire for possession towards Victor in her heart. Scat Hack straightened her outfit, which was a bit messy. She straightened her hair, and soon she looked the same as she always does. Like at home, she was wearing casual clothes, a pair of jeans, and a simple black shirt. She looks at the door and flashes a slight smile. "Come in, maid. We know you're there." Kaguya expected this. She opened the door and entered. As she closes the door and turns around, she looks at the two individuals. Scat Hack was back to her normal appearance, but Victor didn't bother to straighten his clothes. Because of this, evidence of what happened was still visible for Kaguya to see. Looking at her master, who was sitting at the window while looking at the moon, Kaguya's throat began to itch, even though she had never tasted Victor's blood. Just smelling the scent in the air made her very thirsty. Before it wasn't like that, but now, why am I feeling this now? She didn't understand this feeling. Kaka, do your thing, maid. I'll go out for a bit. Scat Hack said she could deduce why Kaguya was here now. Scat Hack walked to the entrance of the room, passing by Kaguya. She spoke in a low voice. "You're lucky, maid." Kaguya doesn't understand. She looks at Scat Hack, but the woman has already left the room and closed the door. Kaguya turned and looked at Victor. "Master." "Kaguya, you left your master for a long time. Do you have any excuses?" Victor spoke, still looking at the moon. Kaguya's body visibly trembled when she heard Victor's serious voice, but soon she replied in a neutral voice. "I told you, Dash," before Kaguya could finish saying something. Victor spoke. "I'm kidding." He spoke, looking at Kaguya. Kaka, Victor laughed amusedly. Kaguya very much held back her urge to pout. "Sigh." Kaguya visibly sighed. She reached in her pocket and pulled out something that looked like golden paper that was rolled into a parchment shape. This golden paper is a contract, a material made by the witches. "Does the master know about this?" "Yeah. Scat Hack taught me the basics of contracts." The magic contracts made by the witch are divided into several levels according to the color of the paper. White paper are the simplest contracts that are made by an inexperienced witch, and this type of contract can also be broken by other inexperienced witches. The golden paper are exclusive contracts that can only be created and broken by experienced witches. There is also the black paper, which is a contract created by the Queen of Witches, and like the other contracts, only the Queen can break this contract. Unexpected. I thought you were only taught about fighting. Oh, she taught me about fighting, but she also taught me some knowledge, so I wouldn't be fooled by the witches. According to her, witches are greedy bitches. Indeed. Kaguya agreed with Scat Hack's thoughts. Soon Kaguya starts to explain. The contract for an exclusive maid works this way. The master must state their working conditions, and the maid must decide whether to accept it or not. To avoid situations where vampires use a maid against her will, this specific contract that is in my hand was made to record the entire contract process and send it to the government agency that oversees slave labor. That seems pretty safe, huh? Victor said that, but inwardly, he was laughing at the irony. After all, vampires treat humans like cattle in this world. As he was jumping from building to building on his way back to Scat Hack's mansion, and saw several situations of humans being used only as merchandise. Like the ancient humans, this situation revolted him, but he wouldn't go out of his way and cause problems because of unknown people. Despite being revolting to Victor, he was curious about one thing. The noble vampires weren't using humans as a sex toy. They just seemed to use humans as a blood store. Victor thinks this is an effect of the mindset of noble vampires who think they are superior to humans. Noble vampires seem to be disgusted with seeing a human as an equal, and they just treat humans like animals or food. It's the same thing that happens in the human world. Victor's thinking was that humans raised chicken, and after a few months of life, that chicken was killed and ended up on someone else's plate. The thought was the same. They were taking the humans and using them as a blood store. And another thing he realized with a brief look at the capital was that this type of market wasn't very popular in the vampire world. Yes, the market existed, but it was only frequented by young vampires. Victor thinks this is because of the ritual he went through since he realized that most vampires were married. Though Victor doubts that plebeian vampires who were once human will think the same way as noble vampires. But all the plebeian vampires I saw were treated like slaves. Plebeian vampires were slaves, and they had no autonomy in this world. They were at the bottom of the hierarchy. Victor felt an irony in this situation. Humans were being treated much better than plebeian vampires. I think it's the difference in value. Humans, despite being treated like animals, all they need to do is give blood regularly to vampires, and a human will live a good life. On the other hand, plebeian vampires were just slaves for bored vampires to abuse. Yeah, we are a civilized society. We do not enslave our fellow men. Kaka, Victor started laughing like crazy with the irony said by Kaguya without her knowing, and he couldn't hold back his laughter. Master? Excuse me. It's nothing, Kaguya. He displayed a small smile. Okay. Kaguya takes the golden paper and throws it towards Victor. Victor raises his arms and grabs the paper. Then he analyzes the golden paper for a few seconds. My contract is simple. Don't do anything that harms my family or me. To put it in precise words, actions like divulging information to enemies, actions like planning a betrayal, actions that in any way will harm my family will not be allowed. The paper began to glow and began to float, and soon the words Victor spoke were written. Only that. Kaguya was internally surprised. She expected 10 paragraphs of boring rules. But instead, what Victor said is just the basics of the basics. Oh, I forgot the most important rule. He exhibited a small smile. The maid can't deny the master's head pat. Kaguya's cheek turned a little red. It's not like she wanted to deny this treatment either. Oh, I almost forgot. The maid should always ensure her safety first. Kaguya's face distorted when she heard Victor's last order. Do you agree with these terms? Master, I can't accept the last one. The main duty of a maid is to keep the master safe. Victor exhibited a gentle smile. I know, and that's a dangerous thought. I'd rather die than let someone close to me die in my place. I would feel devastated if my favorite maid died in my place. He joked at the end, but Kaguya could tell he was being very serious. Kaguya didn't know how to react. It goes against what she was created to be. Kaka, don't overthink. Do you accept or not? N/O/vel/b//c/om. I dash. She didn't know what to say. Victor continued, You're free to do whatever you want. I just want you not to betray me. And I just want you to put your safety first, especially considering your power is good at running away, right? Kaguya felt a warm feeling in her heart. It was such a sweet and gentle feeling that she didn't know how to react. This was the first time anyone cared about her, other than Julia, Sasha's personal maid who died by hunters. She was happy, but she didn't know how to express her emotions. Sigh. She just visibly sighed. I accept. By accepting this contract, she was going against what she was created to be, a maid who sacrifices herself for her master. Soon the golden paper catches fire and disappears. As soon as the paper disappeared, Kaguya could feel a magical current around her heart. But for some reason, she didn't feel like she was trapped or that her freedom was threatened. It was a weird feeling. Looking into Victor's crimson eyes, she flashes a professional smile, holds her uniform skirt, and gives an elegant greeting. I hope this partnership will last for a long time. My master. Soon the day of the game between Sasha's Aunt Victoria Ryder against the leader of the clan horsemen arrived. As it was an important and festive occasion for Nightingale society, women and men can be seen in elegant clothes walking around the capital. The capital was in a party mood, and the bored vampires couldn't wait to see what kind of game it would be. But one thing was certain. They were eager for it to be a fight. After all, it's very rare for two clans with the level of a vampire count's power to fight each other. Security is tighter than before. Violet spoke as she looked around. She was wearing a black dress with a violet flower on her chest, along with long black socks and black boots. Around her neck, a black choker could be seen. TSK, I don't like this. I feel like something is going to happen. Sasha was quite impatient. She was wearing more modern clothes, a pair of black jeans, a plain white shirt, and a black coat. She had pinned her long blonde hair, which had grown in those 6 months, in a ponytail. Just smile, girls. Look at our husband. He doesn't look worried. Ruby spoke with a fake smile on her face. Like Violet, Ruby opted for a simple red dress with black accents. The only difference being that Ruby chose a slightly bigger dress because she didn't like people looking at her body. Although even wearing a little bigger dress, the chest and ass areas were still a little tight. Victor didn't say anything and just continued with a small, simple smile on his face as he walked in front of the group. He was wearing the outfit he got from Scat Hack. The only difference was that he was wearing elegant red glasses that were rather old-looking. He found these glasses in Scat Hack's personal bedroom, and he thought it would be a good idea to use them to disguise the use of his eye powers. After all, when he used his powers, his eyes glowed a very visible blood red. The current group was separated from the other girls, and Victor was with Violet, Ruby, Sasha, Maria, and Yuki. Following through his shadows was Kaguya. She decided to accompany Victor through the shadows to provide information when needed. The other group, Scat Hack, Ruby, Sienna, Eleanor, and Luna, were already waiting in the VIP room. Victor and his wives took a while to get ready because they were too lazy to get out of bed. Maria, stay close, or you'll get lost, Victor spoke without turning back as he continued walking. Maria, who was walking a little way away from the group, was speechless. Is he treating me like a child? She thought. Yes, Lord Victor, Maria replied as she approached the group closer. Violet approaches Victor and grabs his arm. You look excited, darling. Oh, you noticed? Of course, I know everything about you. n/o/vel/b/in.c//in.c//om. Ha ha. He laughed amusedly when he heard Violet's words. Then he replied, Yes, indeed. I'm excited. Sasha, seeing Violet's attitude, wanted to do the same, but she was embarrassed. She wasn't shameless enough to take Victor's arm in the middle of so many people. Ruby walks elegantly beside Victor and takes his arm. Oh! Victor exhibited a small smile. I thought you would be embarrassed. I am, but you're my husband, so it's okay. Heh! Seeing the teasing little smile on Victor's face, her cheeks took on a healthy little shade of red. Sasha bites her lip when she sees this situation. Because of her shame, she couldn't take the initiative. When she was going to enter a sea of negative thoughts, she suddenly felt comforting emotions coming from Victor through their connection. Don't think nonsense, dear. Victor spoke without looking back. Just take your time. Sasha was a little surprised, but she exhibited a small, gentle smile. She nodded. Master, you're a philanderer. You always know where to attack. Huh. Victor heard Kaguya's voice in his head. What are you talking about? I just worry about my wives. He spoke in a low voice. Being close to Victor, his wives heard what he said, but they ignored it since they knew that Kaguya was in his shadow. Although they were curious about what they were talking about, they seemed to be talking about them. Kaguya didn't know how to react to Victor's honest words. Master, we have arrived. Yuki suddenly spoke out loud. In a VIP room reserved only for the family of vampire counts, Scat Hack's group was waiting for Victor. Suddenly, all the women hear the sound of a door opening. Victor, you arrived. You guys were late, huh? Scat Hack says. She looks at the glasses Victor was wearing and nods in satisfaction. Victor looks at Scat Hack, who was sitting on an ice throne in her usual clothes. It can't be helped. I felt like the bed was a quicksand of comfort, so I didn't want to get out of bed. He replied. She displayed a seductive smile. I hope you treated my daughter well. And mother. Ruby's face turned red with embarrassment. What? I just asked that because you were so lazy in the morning. She displayed an innocent smile. Well, she's not wrong, and Ruby also sleeps naked. So, Lakis commented with a small smile. Some things must definitely have happened. Sienna smiled. Pepper just had smoke coming out of her head. She seemed to be thinking about something she shouldn't. Why you guys? Ruby didn't know what to say, and in the end, she just sighed. Don't tease my wife so much. Victor walks beside Scat Hack. He snaps his fingers, and soon an ice thrown a little different from Scat Hack begins to be created. Oh, you got better at creating ice structures. All thanks to your training. He flashed a small smile, then sat down on the ice throne and crossed his legs. Kakaka, I know. She laughed. The women looked at the two with a speechless expression. Why did you create these ice thrones? Can't you guys just sit in the chair? Sasha asked as she pointed to two simple but rather elegant chairs. Hell no, I will not sit in that simple chair. The two spoke in unison with a face of disgust. The group was silent. They just didn't know how to react. This was the VIP room, and it was equipped with the finest furniture in the vampire world, yet they called these luxurious seats a simple chair. Somehow, the women were already more used to this scene. They were slowly accepting the fact that Scat Hack was creating a male version of her, and the only one that was freaking out internally was Eleanor. She had never seen another person so similar to her master. The group spreads out and starts to sit on the chairs and sofas in the VIP room. Victor looks through the glass of the VIP room towards the arena. Hasn't started yet, huh? He spoke in a low tone. Then he looked at the arena with curious eyes. Seeing the plebeian vampires sitting in the stands, he began to inspect everyone. That one over there is strong. That one over there is hiding his powers. He looked at all the vampires who he had an interest in and judged their strength. After being trained by Scat Hack for so long, he could somehow evaluate a person's level based on behavior and a feel that surrounds the vampire. It's something very difficult to put into words, but it's something like a warrior can know if the other warrior is strong or not. Sensing a glance in his direction, he turned his face and looked at another VIP room through the glass. The eyes behind his glasses started to glow, and his world turned blood red. He focused his attention on the individual who had a large red aura surrounding them. Victor's smile grew distorted. Oh, did you find anyone interesting? Scat Hack looks to where Victor was looking. If I'm not mistaken, that room is where Victoria's family is. Scat Hack spoke. My aunt? Sasha gets up from the couch and walks beside Victor. She looks where Victor is looking but doesn't see anything. She just sees a normal room with totally black glass. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Victor turned his face and ignored them for the time being. He looked into another VIP room and saw a woman and a child sitting in a chair. They were both alone in the room, but Victor could see several vampires protecting the place outside. Victor found something interesting with the child. She had a very distorted aura as if two colors were mixed incorrectly. The child suddenly looked towards Victor and then disappeared. Victor was confused. She disappeared? Do not tell me. Soon Victor could feel someone sitting on his lap. Father. Seeing the child in the gothic dress, he displayed a gentle smile. Hello, Ophis. Father. Seeing the child in the gothic dress, he displayed a gentle smile. Hello, Ophis. He stroked the little girl's head. Victor leans her head on his chest and closes his eyes. Father. She shook her head from side to side. She looked like a spoiled child who found her father and wanted a hug. Father. Violet, Ruby, and Sasha almost choked. Kaka Scat Hack was laughing like crazy. Hey, what are you doing? Get off him. Violet's jealousy didn't discriminate between gender or age. In a way, Violet's jealousy was true gender equality. Stop, Violet. Don't touch her. Scat Hack suddenly stops laughing and warns Violet with a serious look. But Violet ignored Scat Hack's warning and held onto Ophis's body. Suddenly, Violet stops moving, and her eyes go blank as if she were dead. Violet, Ruby, and Sasha spoke at the same time. Sigh. Stupid girl, I warned you. Victor's eyes glittered dangerously when he saw Violet's state. He looked at Ophis, seeing the little girl's apologetic face. He sighed, he patted the little girl's head, and looked at Scat Hack. What is this? She'll be fine soon, don't worry. Scat Hack first soothed Victor's emotions. Then she continued. That's what happens when Ophis is touched. She was born with a special condition that charms everyone who touches her. And she also sees the memories of the people who touch her. Victor strokes the little girl's head. Now he understands why she lived isolated. For a child, it is difficult to see the memories of vampires who live for many years. Are you okay? Father memory. Good. She leans her face against Victor's chest again. Suddenly, Violet's face distorted into anger, and she breaks the spell. Oh, it was faster than normal. Scat Hack spoke with curiosity. Violet looks at the girl with angry eyes. Don't look at her like that. She's not to blame. You're the one who didn't listen to me. Scat Hack spoke. Violet closes her hands and opens them several times. Soon, she lets out a long breath. Sigh. Okay, why is this little girl here again? She asked in a neutral tone. Are you okay, honey? Victor asked. Ophus's body trembled slightly when she heard the way Victor called Violet. Yes, I am. Why is she here? She asked again. I don't know. She just came out of the blue, Victor replied. He understood that Violet's mood was not good. Are you okay, darling? She asked with apprehensive eyes. After all, she personally felt the powers of Ophus. Yeah, I don't feel anything. Victor spoke honestly. He didn't feel anything, and he also didn't feel like someone was reading his memories, though he wasn't sure what kind of feeling it would be if someone read his memories. Everyone except Victor, who was looking at Ophus, looked to Scat Hack for answers. Don't look at me. I don't know either. Seeing the innocent smile on Scat Hack's face, everyone didn't believe her. Titus, Violet's eyes were glowing blood red when she saw the position Ophus was in, but even so, she didn't move. People who had known Violet for a long time were shocked by this display of control. They thought she wouldn't be able to stand it. Ruby and Sasha could tell from their connection that Violet was angry, but it was silent anger. It was anger mixed with possessive jealousy. Suddenly, the door opens, and soon everyone can see a woman with long black hair and violet eyes. Violet turns her face. She looks at the woman. The woman looks into Violet's violet eyes, and, noticing Violet's obvious features, the woman could understand that she was someone from Clan Snow, and only one woman from Clan Snow had violet eyes. Who are you, bitch? Sigh. Everyone except Victor and Scat Hack sighed when they heard what Violet said. What a rude person. Who are you? She already knew who Violet was, but for some reason, she didn't want to lose this dispute. I asked first. The woman didn't want to answer. Princess, are you sure she's here? We must not enter this place in such a rude way. The guard was terrified. Why are you afraid? Kaka, you're as clueless as ever, Elizabeth. As Scat Hack. The woman stuttered. Now she understood why the guard was scared. How's that old man doing? Scat Hack spoke. He's the king, you know. Do I have the face of someone who cares? Elizabeth was speechless. She knew that the only person who could speak those words so casually was Scat Hack, and for the sole reason that she was strong. Elizabeth ignores everyone and looks at the Second Eye's throne. She walks a little to the left, and soon she sees Ophus lying on Victor's chest. Again? Did she find him because of the mark? She glanced at Victor, who was sitting on an ice throne, and then she looked around again, and seeing several women of high social standing, Elizabeth's curiosity was flickering frantically. She even tried to use the king's shadows to find information on Victor, but they didn't find anything. Actually, they haven't returned yet, and she didn't think too much about why they haven't. They have been eliminated or are being tortured. She thought. She knew Scat Hack's personality well, and if someone broke into her house, that was the fate of fools who tried to break into her home. Just who are you? Victor looked at Elizabeth and flashed a small smile. My name is Victor. Didn't I say? Elizabeth wanted to hit the ground in frustration now. Bitch, don't look at him. You're going to infect him with some kind of dangerous disease. Violet spoke. Huh. Veins began to pop in Elizabeth's head. She was a noble person and could ignore some insults, but she was not a saint who would take insults in silence. Why don't you go away and take this child with you? Violet didn't want to insult a child, since even she knew it was something horrible, though the little girl didn't do anything. Shoo shoo. She spoke as if she were talking to a dog. I'm still a princess, you know. She commented with a fake smile. I can make you disappear, dash. She couldn't finish her words. She suddenly felt very heavy, and an overwhelming feeling engulfed her entire body. Her body broke out in a cold sweat, and slowly, she turned her face away. When she looked into Victor's blood-red eyes that were visible even through the glasses he was wearing, her whole world seemed to go colorless. Repeat what you said. Victor spoke with a cold tone that sent shivers down Elizabeth's spine. He could ignore arguments. After all, his wives did that constantly. He thinks it's a woman thing. But threats? Those he did not tolerate. Aye. Princess. The guards ran, but suddenly a much greater pressure than Victor fell on them. Quickly, they stopped walking and looked at Scat-Hack. Good, if you took one more step, I would have to hand your heads over to the king. She flashed a crazy smile. Then, she snaps her fingers, and thorns of ice begin to hover over all the guards. They gulped and didn't dare move. Although they had a duty to protect the princess, they didn't want to lose their lives uselessly. They knew that if Scat-Hack killed them, nothing would happen to her. Disappointing, she hoped they would fight. Then, at least she would have an excuse to kill them all. Soon she lost interest in the guards and looked at Victor. She was interested in what he was going to do. I'm waiting. He slowly tapped the ice throne with his finger, like he was counting. The sound of his finger touching the ice made the situation even more terrifying for Elizabeth. Elizabeth tried to ignore the fear in her heart and slowly began to gather her powers. Then, her eyes changed to blood red, and an overwhelming pressure began to leave her body. Oh! Confidence restored, Elizabeth displays a cold smile. I'm still a princess, and I can make her disappear at any time, no matter if she's a daughter of Clan Snow or not. She repeated what she said and added the ending as if it were an absolute truth. Victor's eyes glowed brighter, and his pressure began to build. Everyone was expecting a fight to start at any moment, but something happened that left everyone with no reaction. Victor's pressure disappeared as if it had never existed. Ha 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 ha, he started laughing like crazy, and slowly he began to clap his hands. Good, good, that's the spirit. If not, I would be disappointed. Ah! Elizabeth did not expect this. Violet, Ruby, and Sasha didn't know how to react, and that applied to all the women in this room, so they just watched everything in silence. n/o/vel/b/jan.c//om. Scat-Hack just displayed a big smile on her face. She looked pleased with something. Believe me, princess. Victor's image began to blur. Before you can touch a strand of my wife's hair, you would die. Victor appeared behind Elizabeth and spoke in a low voice in her ear. Elizabeth's whole body froze in fear when she heard what Victor said. She couldn't even react to his speed. And she could also see that crazy woman was smiling, as if supporting what Victor said. She couldn't move. She didn't even dare turn back now. She feared that if she turned around now, she might die. Victor disappears behind Elizabeth and appears sitting on the ice throne he created. Fast. Ha! Did you like it, Ophis? She nodded. Is different. She pointed to herself. Yeah, what I did is something different than what you do. Different? Ophis seemed to be thinking deeply about something. But actually, she was just enjoying Victor's caresses. She seems attached to you, Victor. Scat-Hack spoke. Yeah, but I don't care. She's cute. Victor displayed a gentle smile. Realizing that Victor wasn't doing anything else, Elizabeth began to slowly calm down. Not just her, everyone started to calm down. Fwah! Pepper lets out all the trapped air she's been holding. That was intense. I thought they would fight any second. She spoke in a low voice. Really? I really can't understand Victor anymore. He's becoming too unpredictable. This is bad for my heart. Lakis spoke in a joking tone to alleviate the situation. It's our mother's fault. It's all her fault, Sienna said. The three sisters agreed. I'm glad nothing happened. Yuki's heart was beating very fast. She didn't want to fight the king's family. That was just suicide. But, as a vampire, she liked Victor's attitude, but that's something she'll never say out loud. What are you doing, Maria? Luna asked curiously. Nothing, Maria replied. She made a gesture with her hand, and soon, all the wires she had spread around the room began to be collected. She acted on instinct, but internally, she didn't know why she did it. Why was my first reaction was to try to protect that man? Is it because of the master's order? But the master didn't order me to protect Victor. Darling, Violet had a silly smile on her face. She wanted to hug Victor. But that child was stealing her place. Violet, we need to talk. Ruby spoke seriously. Violet didn't understand. Come here. We need to talk about something. Sasha grabbed Violet's right arm. Ruby approaches Violet and grabs her left arm. Then the two women drag Violet to the corner of the room. Wait. My darling Dash. Shut up. We need to talk. Ruby spoke in a deadly serious tone. Violet was speechless. She had never seen that expression on Ruby. Soon the two wives started to lecture Violet. Calling the king's daughter a bitch was something above the level of disrespect. She needs to be more self-aware of her status. What if, because of her words, a political war broke out? Lots of vampires were going to die because of her decision. That was Sasha and Ruby's concern. As Ruby, Sasha, and Violet talked, Victor spoke. Princess, have you ever heard a Chinese proverb that said, because of a nail, the shoe was lost. Because of the horse, the message was lost. Because of the message, the war was lost. I've never heard of it. Elizabeth continued to speak as her eyes slowly turned to Violet. The lesson this proverb teaches is quite simple to understand. As he stroked Ophis' head, Victor looked up at Elizabeth with a small, innocent smile on his face. Because of a mistake made by someone, an entire war was lost. Everything is connected. So remember, it only takes one small mistake for an entire empire to fall to ruin. Elizabeth felt her whole body go cold when she heard Victor's words. Is this a threat? Threat? PFFF. That's just advice coming from someone who learned from the best teacher in the world. Scathack exhibited a small smile when she heard Victor's words. She didn't have time to teach Victor much. Still, one thing she made sure to teach was the mentality of a warrior who goes to war. After 6 months of intense torture, and with a disciple willing to learn, can work miracles. Elizabeth was silent. I see. I will remember this. Then she turns her face away and looks at Scathack, Ruby, and Sasha. What is your relationship with them? They are my wives, he replied. WWH. She thought for a moment that she was deaf. He pointed to Scathack. She's my mother-in-law and my teacher. I'm his mother-in-law. She spoke with a gentle smile as she waved her hand. Elizabeth didn't know how to react when she saw Scathack playing. He pointed to the 3 sisters. Those are my friends over there. Oh, you can exclude Sienna. She's not my friend at all. Pepper almost started to laugh, but stopped when she saw Sienna's gaze. Leica shook her head when she saw her sister's attitude. That one is my maid. He pointed at Yuki. Yuki made a simple gesture of respect. He looked at Maria and flashed a small smile as if he understood something. She's Sasha's maid. Maria repeated Yuki's gesture. Victor looks at the guards, who still have ice spikes at their throats, and ignores the men. T3? Elizabeth tries to process everything she has heard. He is married to 2 heiresses of houses with the title of Count, and a former heir to the title of Count. And he is the disciple of Scathack. Elizabeth was speechless. If he were just Scathack's disciple, she wouldn't mind. After all, the millennia-old woman has many disciples. But he's married to this crazy woman's heiress too? Kaka. She broke completely. Scathack chuckled when he saw Elizabeth's expression. Are you sure about telling the princess about your relationship with these women? Do I look like I care? It's not like it's a secret. Kaka, you're right. Remembering something he wanted to talk to her, Victor said, Scathack, don't overdo it. What do you mean? Don't eliminate the rats, just torture them. Oh, do you know? Victor just pointed to his eyes. This is a very convenient skill. Indeed. Why don't you want me to eliminate the rats? n/o/vel/b/in.c//om. It's a waste. Waste? Yeah. If they're dead, we can't fight them. Why didn't you kidnap them and use them as a training puppet for your daughters? After all, they are strong. Scathack looked at Victor as if she were looking at a genius. Fuck. Why didn't I ever think about it? She puts her hand to her forehead in disbelief. You're very overprotective. I love that about you. But you need to let your daughters train a little, Victor commented casually. He also wanted to fight those men she eliminated. Scathack looked at Victor with a neutral expression. Did he really not understand what he just said? Victor looked at his chest. Did she sleep? I think you will become a good father in the future, Scathack commented. And for a few seconds, her green eyes sparkled a little. She was clearly planning something. Elizabeth stops thinking bullshit and looks at Ophis. And, seeing Ophis sleeping peacefully on a stranger's chest, the only thing she can think of seeing Ophis' current state is, I hope the father doesn't see this. He's going to freak out. Ladies and gentlemen, suddenly everyone heard the voice of the advertiser. The game between Clan Rider and Clan Horseman is about to begin. Finally, Victor said he hoped to see something interesting. Hearing the advertiser's voice, the women stopped what they were doing and looked out into the arena. Everyone, including the audience, was soon able to see 4 individuals walking towards the middle of the arena. That's my aunt? Oh. Victor looked at the woman who was walking towards the middle of the arena. He could feel that this was the same woman who was in the VIP room a little way away from him. The woman had long blonde hair and blue eyes. She was wearing a long, elegant black dress. She had a gentle smile on her face as she walked towards the center. Victor examines the woman up and down and then looks at Sasha. Then, seeing the obvious differences in the chest, legs, and ass areas, he asked with genuine curiosity, "Is she really your aunt?" He couldn't help asking that question. The woman was just very different from Sasha, and the only things alike were her hair and blue eyes. "Yeah, she's a lot like my mom as usual," Sasha replied as she looked at her aunt. Victor was speechless. Genes are an unfair thing sometimes. He spoke in a low voice. "What are you looking at, darling?" Ruby asked with narrowed eyes. "I was just admiring how beautiful my wives are." He smiled. Ruby was a little embarrassed, but she was getting used to her husband's charm. She won't fall so easy. Victor flashed a small smile and snapped his fingers. And then soon, 3 more ice thrones were created beside him. "Feel free." He pointed to the thrones. Sasha, who was closest to Victor, sat next to him. Violet sat next to Sasha, and Ruby sat next to Violet. Kaka, they complained so much, and in the end, they did the same thing. Scat Hack laughed. Victor exhibited a small smile and stroked Opha's hair, who was sleeping on his chest. Then he looked at the arena again. He saw that a rather tall man was heading towards the center of the arena. The game was starting.